The freezing waves crash against a world swallowed by a suffocating, gray abyss. Through the thick mist, a lone traveler desperately rows his fragile wooden boat. Every breath is agony as the warrior buckles under the weight of his exhaustion. Lethal poison surges through his veins, threatening to end his journey right here. He clings to a golden medallion, his only hope of reaching the Handong territory. Suddenly, a chilling voice rings out from the darkness, announcing his inevitable capture. His eyes widen in pure terror as the realization of his situation sets in. A massive vessel looms over him, filled with silent killers waiting to strike. Golden claws grip the railing, belonging to a predator who tracked him across oceans. The white-haired commander smiles, demanding he surrender his life and his mission. He screams his defiance at the massive ship, refusing to bow to his enemies. But the poison is relentless, forcing him to collapse in a pool of blood. High above, she offers him a choice to serve the man who ruined him. His heart shatters as he realizes the woman he trusted has completely betrayed him. A brief flicker of hesitation crosses her face before the coldness returns. She mocks the word traitor, her smile widening with a newfound, dark cruelty. With crimson eyes glowing, she declares that a new era of power has begun. She delivers the final crushing blow, revealing that his beloved home is already gone. He grips his golden medallion so hard his knuckles turn white with desperate rage. He looks at his former ally, mourning the bond they shared in another life. The ground shatters as a dormant power finally erupts with violent force. Her cold confidence vanishes the moment she realizes she underestimated her prey. He unleashes a blinding surge of energy that tears through the freezing air. She reels back in terror as the dying man finds his second wind. With a roar of defiance, he prepares to give his final, explosive answer. The impact obliterates everything in its path, signaling a desperate turning point. She stares in disbelief at the sheer strength remaining in his broken body. Desperate to end him, she orders her shadows to strike before he recovers. Meanwhile, far from the chaos, the peaceful shores of South Haseong await. A quiet hut stands as a silent reminder of the life he lost. A heavy door creaks open as a secret escape begins in the shadows. Every silent footstep carries the weight of a boy desperate for his freedom. But the ultimate hunter is already waiting to strike at the front gate. Jinbek realizes his covert mission has been compromised by the one person he feared. His sister Madan demands to know where he thinks he is going this time. He frantically invents a tragic lie about a neighbor who has already died twice. She stares him down with cold eyes, completely unimpressed by his pathetic excuses. Without their grandfather's permission, he is strictly forbidden from leaving the village walls. Sensing defeat, he pivots to a desperate bribe involving a beautiful market mirror. The mention of candy finally makes her ironclad resolve begin to crumble. Thinking he finally bought his freedom, Jinbok rushes toward the open gate. But his celebration is cut short by a blow he never saw coming. Looking up from the dirt, he realizes his nightmare has just begun. Looming over him like a mountain is the man who rules this village. Fear paralyzes his heart as he stares into the eyes of his grandfather. The old man roars, demanding to know why his orders were ignored. Jinbek tries to defend his pride, claiming a man must have grand dreams. That pathetic excuse only fuels the patriarch's legendary and terrifying rage. Midan can only watch in horror as her brother pays for his insolence. Meanwhile, under the silent starlight, a distant shore prepares for a coming storm. Gasping for air, he barely manages to recover from his grandfather's brutal punishment. Alone on the shore, he curses the old man's suffocating and strange rules. He stares into the horizon, desperate to escape this boring, repetitive existence. In his mind, he is already a legendary warrior riding a powerful black stallion. He envisions himself as a hero of the people, gaining fame across the lands. He leaps up, acting out the moment he rescues a beautiful maiden from peril. He plays both roles, imagining her desperate plea and his own cool response. With a confident grin, he introduces himself as the greatest warrior in the district. He cheers for his future glory, convinced his legendary journey is about to begin. Suddenly, a cold wave of reality crashes down, washing away his foolish daydreams. Jinbek stands shivering on the beach, his clothes soaked by the dark, freezing water. He grumbles about the waves, unaware that his peaceful night is about to end. His eyes widen in absolute horror as he notices a shadow in the surf. The broken body of a warrior lies motionless, his life extinguished by brutal violence. Gasping for air, the boy realizes he is no longer alone with his thoughts. A strange, haunting glow emanates from a hidden object on the dead man's waist. Far from the shore, a monstrous figure marches through the heart of the capital. Subordinates shake with fear as his crushing presence demands their absolute, silent submission. He looms over the assembly like a god, his power dwarfing everyone in sight. With a twisted smile, he prepares to unleash a storm upon the unsuspecting world. The Chancellor storms into the palace, his voice booming with a terrifying lack of respect. Terrified servants watch in horror as the man ignores every sacred law of the court. He demands the king show himself, his face contorted into a mask of pure aggression. A desperate eunuch attempts to stop him, only to face a monster in human skin. A powerful hand suddenly seizes the man's face, silencing his protests in an instant. Lifting his victim effortlessly, the Chancellor demonstrates the terrifying gap in their physical strength. He sneers at the official, declaring that raising a voice to him is a death sentence. With a brutal surge of energy, he hurls the broken body across the royal room. As blood splatters the walls, the other attendants can only watch, frozen by fear. Approaching the bed, Lord Jucho mockingly expresses concern for his sovereign's failing health. The trembling ruler realizes his life is no longer his own. Jucho declares himself the new leader, his smile hiding a monster's ambition. Terrified servants can only watch as the kingdom falls to a tyrant. Far from the palace, a peaceful village is shattered by a familiar roar. Jinbok flees for his life as his grandfather prepares a brutal lesson. The boy desperately lies about his whereabouts to avoid a painful beating. He keeps a dark secret hidden, knowing the truth would invite true danger. His sister watches the usual chaos with nothing but a sigh of disappointment. Suddenly, the chase ends as the old man demands his grandson's full attention. Handing over a heavy burden, the patriarch sends the boy on a mission. Grandfather forces Jinbek to leave on his mission with a terrifying glare. The boy enters the bustling market, a place usually filled with life and laughter. A local merchant hands over supplies, warning the boy to stay out of trouble. Jinbek smiles, planning to use his spare coins for a gift for his sister. His peaceful errand is cut short by a sudden, ominous commotion in the distance. Curiosity drives him forward as he pushes through the growing crowd of worried villagers. The blood drains from his face the moment he sees the unfolding nightmare. A defenseless elder and a crying child tremble before a group of ruthless predators. But a mysterious man in black steps in, challenging the village's most feared thugs. The onlookers whisper in terror, certain this stranger has just signed his death warrant. The villagers gasp as they realize the mysterious traveler is actually armed. He lets out a cold breath, completely unfazed by the overwhelming odds. He scoffs at the thugs, claiming they aren't even worth his steel. The local predators freeze, stunned by this traveler's sheer arrogance. Rage boils over as the lead thug prepares to crush the insolent outsider. They swarm him at once, certain that numbers will guarantee his death. With a final calm exhale, the stranger enters a state of absolute focus. He becomes a phantom of blue light, flickering through their ranks like lightning. The attackers spin around in terror, realizing their target has vanished mid-swing. Before they can react, the first thug collapses, coughing blood from a phantom strike. The crowd watches in absolute silence as the thugs collapse from invisible wounds. This mysterious traveler stands unmoved, having ended the fight in a single breath. Whispers of awe ripple through the market, wondering how a mortal could move so fast. Among the terrified onlookers, young Jinbek stares with eyes full of newfound wonder. Without even drawing his blade, the warrior scoffs at his defeated, pathetic opponents. Before the stranger can vanish, Jinbok breaks the silence and calls out to him. The boy rushes forward, desperate to know if he has finally met a legendary swordsman. The traveler remains cold and silent, gazing at a path far beyond this village. He turns his back on the boy's excitement, intending to leave the chaos behind. But Jinbek refuses to let this chance escape, chasing the master for an answer. In his desperate pursuit, the young boy's footing finally gives way to the dust. He crashes hard into the dirt right before the silent traveler's feet. Amidst the tumble, a golden medallion and a heavy coin ring scatter across the ground. The stoic warrior gazes down, his cold indifference suddenly replaced by a sharp realization. His pupils tremble as he recognizes an artifact that should have never been here. He snatches the golden plate, gripping it with a strength born of pure shock. Jinbek offers a nervous laugh and a meal, but the atmosphere turns deathly cold. In a flash of terrifying speed, the traveler pins the boy by his collar. Terror paralyzes Jinbek as the stranger demands to know the source of the medallion. The warrior looms like a demon, demanding the truth from a boy who knows nothing. The warrior tightens his grip, demanding the truth about the hidden golden token. Jinbek desperately gasps for air as the massive man lifts him off the ground. Sensing the boy's absolute weakness, the traveler realizes he isn't the true killer. A cold blade begins to clear its sheath as a final, lethal ultimatum. Trembling with primal fear, Jinbek points toward the crashing waves of the sea. The mention of a washed-up corpse sends a jolt through the warrior's soul. He violently shakes the boy, desperate for details on the fallen man's appearance. Jinbek stammers about a distinctive X-shaped scar carved deep into the man's forehead. The warrior releases his prey, his mind racing with the weight of this discovery. Now, the terrified boy must lead this monster to the secret forest grave. The crimson-eyed pursuer watches the tide, hunting for the one who vanished. Her men whisper of the white-faced demon, terrified of her next heartless move. No tracks remain on the sand, leaving the elite hunters empty-handed and desperate. She suspects the courier survived the plunge, her gaze burning with lethal intent. A brutal command echoes across the shore to tear the village apart immediately. Miles away, the sun struggles to pierce through the suffocating canopy of bamboo. The traveler finally stands before the humble grave of his fallen, betrayed comrade. Grief masks his face as he stares at the stones marking a warrior's end. Jinbek trembles while explaining how he buried the body to protect its rest. A silent tear escapes as the weight of an era comes crashing down. The traveler collapses before the humble grave of his fallen, betrayed comrade. His fingers crush the earth as he curses the man who destroyed everything. Tears of fury fall while he vows to repay this bloodshed with interest. Behind him, the boy stands paralyzed after hearing a name that shakes the world. Softening his gaze, the warrior bows to thank the child for guarding the dead. With his duty finished, the mysterious traveler turns to vanish into the trees. The boy desperately calls out, begging the powerful stranger not to leave yet. He offers a place to rest as darkness begins to swallow the ancient forest. Though he tries to remain stoic, the wanderer's hunger finally betrays his pride. The boy excitedly leads the way, hoping to finally learn the path of power. Voyager accepts the boy's offer, following him deeper into the darkening woods. Little do they know, a silent observer watches their every move from the shadows. Miles away, the white-haired pursuer rages at her men for losing the target's trail. Suddenly, a masked demon appears to deliver news that changes the entire hunt. They failed to find the messenger, but they discovered something far more valuable instead. The hunter's crimson eyes widen as the weight of this discovery sinks in. A chilling laugh escapes her lips, echoing across the desolate, blood-red shoreline. She realizes her prey has led her straight to an even bigger prize. Back at the village, the family waits in silence for the boy's return. The mood shifts instantly when the boy arrives with a legendary warrior in tow. The boy excitedly introduces his new master, unaware of the danger he's invited home. Inside, the patriarch sits in silence, his sharp eyes weighing the stranger's hidden power. A suffocating aura surrounds the traveler, revealing the true face of a seasoned killer. Sensing the deadly intent, the old man rises to confront the wandering swordsman. Peace is shattered as the grandfather demands the intruder leave their sanctuary at once. The boy pleads for his guest, terrified by his grandfather's sudden, explosive hostility. With cold indifference, the warrior claims he only seeks a single night of rest. Sweat beads on the elder's brow as he realizes this man's strength is absolute. He grants a temporary mercy, ordering the dangerous guest to vanish by first light. But as their eyes meet, a chilling realization strikes the heart of the voyager. A jagged scar reveals a past the old man tried to bury forever. He recognizes the mark of a master whose martial arts were forcibly sealed. Tension thickens as the elder realizes their guest was once a legendary warrior. Unaware of the danger, the boy eagerly leads the stranger to his quarters. Walking toward the guest house, the youth finally asks for the wanderer's name. Cold and distant, the warrior refuses to form a bond with a temporary host. An awkward silence hangs between them as they continue through the quiet village. The boy confesses his secret passion for the forbidden world of martial arts. He begs for a single lesson, dreaming of becoming a hero who saves lives. The word hero strikes a chord in a man who has only known slaughter. The warrior asks if the boy thinks this deadly path is a game. Cold reality sinks in as the youth stares into those hollow, murderous eyes. He struggles to find words, but the traveler's presence is heavy and suffocating. A piercing scream shatters the peace as Maiden calls for help in terror. They race toward the source of the noise, desperate to reach her. Jinbak rounds the corner and stops dead at the sight of the intruder. Even the stoic voyager freezes as a ghost from his bloody past appears. The white-haired pursuer smiles, while her masked servant holds the girl hostage. Tears stream down the sister's face, as a cold hand silences her cries. Desperate and outmatched, the boy screams to know who these monsters are. The white-haired pursuer sneers as she finally corners her long-lost prey. Handong remains silent as the suffocating pressure of his past returns. Terror grips the young boy as he realizes they are completely trapped. Desperate to save his sister, he charges recklessly toward the masked monster. A lethal strike from the shadows nearly ends the boy's life instantly. Suddenly, the village elder throws himself into the fray to protect him. Blood spatters the ground as the old man takes a fatal blow. The pursuer watches with cold indifference as the village's hope collapses. With his final breath, the elder begs the boy to turn and run. Handong steps forward, promising to handle the monsters while the boy flees. Handong glares intensely, warning the boy that this battle is far beyond his level. Terror freezes the young boy as he realizes the true scale of the coming slaughter. The stoic warrior demands to know how this white-faced demon tracked them so quickly. With a mocking smile, the pursuer reveals she followed a trail of blood and secrets. She hungrily questions if he found the legendary jade talisman hidden within the village. A heavy silence falls as Handong refuses to give the monster the answers she craves. Losing patience, the white-haired hunter suddenly lunges and seizes the innocent young girl. Sharp claws press against a trembling throat as the villain demands a life-or-death choice. Handong commands her to release the child and settle their score like true warriors. A cruel smirk spreads across her face as she prepares to shatter his remaining hope. The white-haired demon strikes, demanding answers through a spray of innocent blood. Horror washes over the survivors as they witness the monster's cruelty firsthand. Desperation takes hold, as the young boy screams for his sister's life. Finally, the legendary warrior unleashes his blade in a blinding surge of blue energy. The pursuer laughs, relishing the fact that she forced his hand so easily. Steel meets claw in a violent explosion of power that shakes the very earth. She mocks his predictability, claiming his protective heart is his greatest weakness. Refusing to play her games, Handong descends like a god of vengeance from above. The sheer weight of his killing intent forces the arrogant hunter onto her heels. She warns her approaching soldiers that this prize belongs to her alone. Jinbok watches in horror as his grandfather collapses amidst the violent shockwaves of battle. The sheer scale of this divine power is simply beyond his comprehension. Handong lunges forward with a roar, his blade wreathed in blinding blue energy. The impact is so immense that the hunter's unbreakable golden claws begin to splinter. He demands to know why she insists on dragging innocent lives into her path. She sneers back, declaring that anyone who stands in her master's way must die. With a cold glare, the legendary warrior prepares to end this mockery forever. A massive strike descends, tearing through the earth and shattering her arrogant defense. Her primary weapon crumbles into dust as she gasps at his overwhelming strength. Realizing she is outmatched, the hunter snaps her fingers to summon lethal reinforcements. Handong stands firm, his gaze fixed on the monsters threatening his new home. He catches a glimpse of the carnage, knowing time is rapidly running out. Nearby, Jinbek desperately cries out for his sister as she lies broken and bleeding. Realizing the stakes, the warrior focuses every ounce of his power into his blade. A spectral dragon of pure blue energy begins to coil around his lethal form. The hunter's smug expression instantly vanishes as she senses the sudden, overwhelming pressure. She screams for her men to strike before the legendary monster completes his technique. Gritting his teeth in raw fury, Handong prepares to unleash his ultimate, final judgment. He roars the name of his forbidden art as a massive dragon consumes everything. The blinding light swallows the invaders whole, leaving only screams of terror behind. The hunter screams in absolute terror as she realizes the monster's power is unleashed. A tidal wave of pure energy erupts, tearing through the air with lethal speed. The devastating impact shatters the earth, leaving nothing but absolute destruction behind. Dust settles over a massive crater where the invaders lie broken and defeated. Gasping for air, the pursuer desperately clings to life after that near-fatal strike. She mockingly taunts the warrior, believing his greatest technique has finally been exhausted. Her crimson eyes widen in shock as the surrounding stone begins to crumble again. Panic erupts once more as the mountain itself collapses upon the remaining survivors. Handong stands tall amidst the wreckage, his presence radiating an aura of unstoppable doom. Staring at his back, the hunter realizes she has challenged a man-made god. Jinbok stares in disbelief, witnessing a power only whispered about in ancient legends. Handong stands as the embodiment of true martial arts, his energy blade cutting through reality. The sheer scale of the destruction leaves the young boy breathless amidst the smoking rubble. Despite his overwhelming strength, the toll of the forbidden technique begins to show. Panic strikes as Jinbek rushes to his fallen sister, while Handong barks orders. He gently supports her bloodied frame as the legendary warrior prepares a miracle. Pure energy erupts from Handong's palm, seeking to mend the girl's fatal, jagged wounds. Maidan drifts between life and death as the cooling light of the Voyager's soul intervenes. A blinding blue aura envelops them both, defying the very laws of nature and mortality. Jinbek watches the impossible unfold, questioning if he has finally lost his mind. Handong channels every ounce of his soul to purge the lethal poison. Behind him, the old man lies broken, his final breath slipping away. Jinbok can only watch in horror as his world crumbles into ash. With his last strength, the grandfather begs them to save the girl. Handong remains stoic, focused on the delicate flow of his internal energy. Time is running out as the old man gasps for one more hour. Suddenly, a chilling presence emerges from the shadows of the ruined village. The white-haired hunter returns, mocking Handong for his newfound weakness and sentiment. She readies her lethal claws, sensing the warrior's fatal opening during the ritual. If Handong breaks his focus now, both he and Midan will surely perish. The arrogant hunter mocks her prey, claiming her power has evolved beyond recognition. She lunges with lethal intent, her claws glowing with a toxic emerald energy. As the grandfather screams, the boy fires a weapon of unknown, devastating power. A searing beam of light pierces the air, catching the hunter completely off guard. Paralyzed by fear, the boy realizes his desperate gamble has only fueled her rage. Handong bellows a warning as the youth frantically struggles to reload his iron toy. With trembling hands, he levels the barrel for one last shot at the demon. She laughs at his pathetic resistance before swiping her claws in a blur of speed. Fresh blood sprays the earth as the boy is thrown back by her overwhelming force. A massive explosion engulfs the ruins, sealing the fate of everyone left in the village. Grandfather lets out a final, agonizing cry as his life's light begins to fade. Crushed beneath the weight of heavy stone, the boy struggles to draw a breath. Paralyzed by the overwhelming force, he realizes his broken body will no longer respond. The white-haired demon turns away, mocking the pathetic resistance of those left standing. Nearby, the young girl remains lost in a trance of mystical pain and suffering. Desperation grips the boy's heart as his trembling fingers claw at the cold earth. Handong channels his remaining energy, knowing the girl's life hangs by a single thread. The pursuer whispers a lethal ultimatum, demanding total submission to a dark lord. A golden claw draws blood, testing the warrior's resolve in this moment of weakness. Facing certain death, the warrior chooses a final stand over a life of servitude. The white-haired demon narrows her crimson eyes, relishing the warrior's final moments of defiance. Green poison surges through her claws as she prepares to end the long pursuit. With a sadistic grin, she lunges forward to deliver a final killing blow. A deafening thunderclap shatters the silence, stopping the lethal strike in its tracks. Shock flares in her gaze as an unexpected force erupts from the shadows. A blinding explosion of light engulfs the battlefield, blinding everyone within the village. The massive blast ripples through the air, signaling a desperate turn in the fight. Jinbok and the village elder watch in utter disbelief as the smoke clears. Emerging from the chaos, the young boy stands tall with a smoking weapon. Trembling but determined, he prepares to fire again to protect his legendary mentor. Handong collapses as the shockwave of the unexpected blast ripples through the air. The pursuer stares in disbelief that a mere hunting tool could hold such power. She sneers at the young boy, recognizing a hidden talent that shouldn't exist. Standing over her fallen prey, she realizes Handong is a threat to her lord. Her crimson eyes narrow as she prepares to end his life once and for all. Suddenly, a bloodied elder stumbles forward, halting her murderous intent with a single sentence. Gasping for breath, the old man reveals the truth about the legendary jade talismans. The mere mention of these artifacts sends a wave of shock through every warrior present. Silence hangs heavy as the weight of this forbidden secret changes the entire battlefield. Driven by greed and confusion, she demands to know if those relics truly exist here. The wounded elder gasps, his knowledge of the forbidden talismans chilling the air. She sneers at his words, convinced the old man is spinning desperate lies. Shadows fall over his face as the weight of an ancient secret takes hold. He suddenly questions if they remember the legendary temple lost to time and blood. The hunter scoffs, recalling a place supposedly wiped out by the demon cult decades ago. Blood drips from his lips as he prepares to reveal his true, buried identity. Everyone freezes in terror as he declares himself the temple's final, living survivor. Her rage boils over, refusing to believe a legend could be standing before her. She argues that a true warrior monk would never have fallen so easily earlier. Tearing his robes, he reveals the brutal scar that forced him to abandon his power. The hunter stands frozen as a vow from the past shatters her cold composure. Legends tell of 8 jade talismans holding power that could rewrite reality itself. Her eyes widen as the old man exposes her secret plan to the world. Blood stains the ground as he reveals her total ignorance of the true scripture. A terrifying resolve burns in his eyes as he prepares for a final gamble. He offers his own life as a sacrifice to protect the innocent village children. Suspicion flickers across her face while she weighs the worth of this ancient warrior. Even on the brink of death, his overwhelming pressure forces her to hesitate. A wicked smile spreads as she realizes a legendary prize has fallen into her lap. Her golden claws glint with malice as she refuses to trust his sudden surrender. The pursuer forces a lethal choice, demanding the old man swallow his pride and poison. This black silkworm pill will consume his body unless he receives a constant antidote. A cold threat follows, promising to slaughter the village children if he dares to lie. With no other choice, the elder consumes the parasitic core to seal their dark pact. Nearby, Handong desperately pours his remaining energy into stabilizing the girl's fading life. He curses his own weakness, knowing his momentary lapse in judgment caused this disaster. The elder approaches the warrior, swallowing his shame to ask for one final favor. He begs Handong to become the shield for the children who have lost everything. Jinbak lies broken on the cold ground, clutching onto his grandfather's final, hidden truths. The hunter watches with cold disappointment, realizing her prey has escaped through a sacrifice. The hunter mocks fate as she prepares to leave the warrior behind. A temporary truce is struck as the enemies vanish into the morning mist. As the sun rises, the weight of the previous night's tragedy finally settles. Suddenly, the boy's eyes snap open as he returns from the brink. Jinbek gasps for air, terrified that he has lost everything in the chaos. Relief washes over him when he sees Madan breathing safely beside him. He looks up to find the mysterious warrior watching him in cold silence. Handong's heavy gaze carries the painful burden of the elder's final sacrifice. The golden rays of dawn illuminate a world changed forever by blood. On the shore, the warrior delivers the grandfather's final wish for their future. Bathed in the dawn light, the boy stares at a world that has shattered. He asks the silent warrior if his grandfather will truly survive this nightmare. Handong explains that the enemy only cares about the legendary jade talismans, but the boy stops him, fearing the slaughter that follows a finished hunt. A heavy silence falls as the two survivors face their grim new reality. Handong clenches his fist, haunted by his inability to save everyone last night. Overwhelmed by grief and exhaustion, Jinbak finally collapses into the sand. The warrior realizes they are now both hunting the same forbidden artifacts. Desperate for strength, the boy begs to follow him into the coming war. Haunted by his helplessness, he vows to never lose his family again. Jinbak's trembling hands grip the sand as the weight of failure crushes him. Handong tries to ease the boy's guilt, but the young survivor refuses comfort. Tears stream down his face as he laments his own pathetic weakness. Desperate for power, he begs the warrior to teach him the forbidden arts. The veteran warns that the path of a martial artist is no joke. He reveals that monsters far stronger than their enemies lurk in the shadows. A cold ultimatum is delivered, questioning if the boy can handle constant slaughter. The silence on the beach is broken only by the sound of bitter sobbing. Jinbak declares he would rather die than ever be this helpless again. Accepting his new disciple, the master finally reveals his true name is Handong. High above the serene palace, a messenger bird carries a secret of ultimate power. The letter lands in the hands of a man who rules from the shadows. He reads of the 8 jade talismans, realizing his long-awaited chance has arrived. A terrifying grin spreads across his face as he contemplates his coming victory. The legendary scriptures of the temple monks are finally within his grasp. An officer reports that the young emperor has arrived exactly where he wanted. The ruler walks peacefully through golden fields, unaware of the lurking predator. The chancellor prepares to execute a coup that will leave the throne in ruins. Miles away, Handong begins the boy's grueling path toward becoming a true monster. Jinbak gasps for air, pushing his body to the brink to gain forbidden strength. Jinbak screams in frustration as the crushing weight of his weakness breaks him. He remembers leaving his only friend behind with nowhere left to call home. Handong reveals their next destination is the heart of the enemy's territory. The boy trembles upon hearing the name of the realm's true shadow ruler. A horrifying truth emerges about the monster who poisoned the former king. Decades ago, the chancellor was a loyal servant before the darkness took root. Handong once stood proud as a member of the legendary Asura clan. Everything changed when a cursed bead of infinite power was finally unearthed. The chancellor's overwhelming sorcery turned the entire capital into a funeral pyre. No one was safe from his purge, not even his most trusted warriors. Handong realizes the cursed bead was actually a legendary jade talisman. He clenches his fist, knowing the young emperor's life hangs by a thread. The master vows to reunite the Asura clan and topple the shadow ruler. Jinbek trembles in fear, begging for his life instead of a revolution. The journey ahead remains long as the harsh training continues across the wasteland. Despite the boy's tearful protests, Handong demands absolute consistency in his training. Silently, the warrior watches his student with a cold and calculating gaze. He expected the boy to break, yet Jinbek somehow refuses to collapse. The memory of the boy channeling energy into a weapon proves his potential. Under the vast open sky, a new legend begins to take shape. Jinbek collapses into the dirt, his body finally reaching its absolute breaking point. Handong coldly announces their arrival, while the boy stares up in utter disbelief. The gates of the massive city reveal a world teeming with life and commerce. A stranger reaches out a hand to the boy lying paralyzed on the ground. Jinbek gratefully accepts the help, unaware of what stands directly behind his savior. A monstrous beast looms over them, leaving the young disciple frozen in pure terror. The master explains the unique prosperity and stable politics of this legendary fortress. Handong ignores the boy's shock, focused only on finding a place to eat. Suddenly, the crowd erupts as the powerful lord of the castle makes his entrance. Confetti fills the air as the ruler passes through his cheering loyal subjects. The beloved Lord Yupyo waves to his subjects, basking in their absolute adoration. Handong remains unimpressed by the spectacle, his only concern finding a decent meal. Nearby, a reckless attendant prepares to ignite firecrackers right beside a massive beast. The explosive sparks reflect in the bullseye, triggering a primal, violent instinct. A deafening blast shatters the celebration, sending the powerful creature into a frenzy. Driven by pure madness, the monster breaks its chains and begins a murderous rampage. Screams of terror fill the air as the beast tramples everything in its path. Death looms over the castle lord as the unstoppable juggernaut charges his carriage. Just before the impact, a single figure steps forward, grounding himself for battle. Handong stands alone against the monster, ready to show the city his true power. Concentrating his immense power, Handong gathers a vortex of pure, lethal energy. The monstrous beast thunders forward, but the warrior stands his ground without flinching. Terror and primal rage flicker within the creature's wide, bloodshot eyes. With a gaze like cold steel, the master prepares to end this chaos. One palm is all it takes to halt the unstoppable juggernaut in its tracks. Silence falls over the city as the terrified witnesses struggle to believe their eyes. The crowd erupts in cheers for the mysterious hero known only as Yijak. Despite his godlike power, Handong sternly lectures the reckless owner for his mistake. Even those close to him are stunned by the sheer scale of his power. Mystery surrounds the warrior as he stands before the paralyzed, grateful castle lord. The castle lord laughs in relief, grateful that the nightmare is finally over. He offers high praise to the mysterious warrior who saved his city from ruin. As the lord departs in glory, the hero watches from the shadows of the crowd. But Handong's mind is already fixed on a far more dangerous objective. He shoves a heavy pouch into his companion's hands with a sudden, final instruction. Before a single protest can be made, the master vanishes into the distance. Left behind and bewildered, the young man wails at being abandoned so heartlessly. However, the sheer weight of the gold coins inside quickly changes his tune. Greed replaces sorrow as he realizes he is now a very wealthy man. Meanwhile, the local inn bustles with rumors of the legendary man who disappeared. Jinbok finally settles into a local inn, greeted by a feast fit for kings. The aroma of golden roasted chicken fills the air, masking the scent of danger. He devours the meal like a starving beast, oblivious to the eyes watching him. Nearby, a weathered veteran slams his cup down with the force of a mountain. Whispers spread through the tavern about the monsters currently occupying the corner table. A mountain of empty bottles reveals a drinking contest that defies all human limits. The old warrior laughs, daring his opponent to survive just one more lethal round. Terrified patrons realize this contest has been raging for 3 consecutive, sleepless nights. Flushed with sudden wealth and wine, the boy calls for even more expensive rations. Suddenly, the atmosphere freezes as a shadow enters, hiding power that shouldn't exist. Handong sits silently, a shadow of death amidst the tavern's rowdy atmosphere. The frantic server can barely keep up with the endless demands for more wine. Every table screams for more, unaware of the monster hiding in their midst. Beneath his hat, Handong's patience thins as the chaotic noise grates his nerves. A sudden, startled jump sends a full cup of wine flying through the air. The liquid splashes uselessly against the wood, signaling a humiliating defeat in their contest. A boisterous veteran erupts in laughter, mocking his opponent for his weak composure. He drains his own cup in one massive gulp, proving his legendary iron liver. Slamming the vessel down, he claims total victory over the trembling, clumsy old man. Meanwhile, Jinbek ignores the spectacle, devouring his meal like a man possessed by hunger. The defeated veteran seethes with rage after losing a humiliating drinking bet. Handong remains silent, his cold gaze hidden beneath the brim of his bamboo hat. The old man erupts, accusing the mysterious traveler of ruining their celebratory mood. A heavy sigh escapes Handong as he prepares to deal with the mounting idiocy. He mocks the fake monks, calling them out for their pathetic, degenerate lifestyle. Insulted and red-faced, the veteran's pride shatters into a violent, murderous fury. He brandishes his heavy staff, demanding to know if this brat has a death wish. Handong stands his ground, daring the hypocrite to drop the act and commit murder. Blinded by rage, the man lunges forward, promising to rip out Handong's insolent tongue. A devastating strike descends, but he has no idea he just challenged a living monster. Panic grips the tavern as a table explodes from a single, impossible strike. Handong unsheathes his cold steel, ordering the fake monk to pay his debt. The muscular veteran sneers, impressed that this brat actually knows how to fight. He launches a devastating overhead swing, daring the young man to try dodging. A thunderous clash echoes through the hall as their weapons collide with lethal force. Neither warrior gives an inch, their movements blurring into a dance of destruction. Handong stares down his opponent, feeling the overwhelming weight behind the old man's staff. He maintains his composure, refusing to buckle under the pressure of the veteran's aura. The shopkeeper screams in agony as the violent shockwaves tear his building apart. Finally, the old man settles back, praising the young warrior's incredible blade skills. Handong decides to escalate the fight by channeling energy through his simple chopsticks. The tavern becomes a war zone as the two warriors exchange devastating strikes. Handong struggles to keep his composure while his opponent mocks his failing strength. A sudden surge in the enemy's aura causes the hidden master's eyes to widen. A violent explosion of force sends Handong flying across the room in total shock. Panicked onlookers watch from above as the building begins to collapse around them. The sheer intensity of the clash causes the floor to splinter and crack apart. A massive rift opens in the wood, threatening to swallow the entire tavern whole. Another legendary veteran steps forward, laughing as he joins this one-sided slaughter. Handong realizes with dread that he cannot possibly defeat two monsters at once. Handong prepares to unleash his true power as the situation reaches a breaking point. Suddenly, a thunderous voice interrupts the veteran, demanding he stop his cowardly assault. The hidden master stares in disbelief at the fool interrupting this life-or-death struggle. From the balcony above, Jinbak boldly declares himself the ultimate master of martial arts. Confusion fills the tavern as the warriors look up at the loud-mouthed intruder. But his heroic entrance instantly turns into a disaster when he loses his footing. A massive cloud of dust erupts as the boy crashes onto the splintered floor. Jinbak groans in agony, his grand debut ending in a pathetic pile of wood. Dazed and confused, he struggles to remember how his glorious moment failed so miserably. Handong stands over his clumsy disciple, questioning the boy's sanity after such a stunt. The legendary demon ear looms over his prey, demanding a duel to the death. Handong freezes in terror, realizing the monster before him is no ordinary drunk. Jinbak cowers on the floor, his fake bravado shattered by the veteran's overwhelming pressure. Panic sets in as the hidden master frantically searches for a way to escape. His eyes dart toward the scattered wine jars, sparking a desperate, last-ditch idea. The old warrior pauses in confusion when the boy suggests a battle of booze. From the splintered floor, Jinbak pleads for a drinking contest to settle the score. Handong snaps at his foolish disciple, ordering him to stop this absolute nonsense immediately. Suddenly, the boy reveals a heavy sack of gold to sweeten the dangerous gamble. The veteran's greed finally outweighs his bloodlust as the high-stakes bet is accepted. The boy's desperate gamble finally pays off as the veteran accepts the high-stakes challenge. But the price of failure is absolute, carrying a cold promise of certain death. Fear paralyzes the young disciple as he realizes his very life hangs by a thread. The bloodthirsty warrior extends the lethal wager to the silent master in the shadows. Handong questions the madness of risking everything on a mere game of chance. A mocking laugh echoes as the veteran asks if the legendary master lacks confidence. Orders for the strongest liquor roar through the inn, sealing their violent fate. Jinbak pleads for mercy, realizing the lethal potency of the coming contest. Time begins to bleed away as the hourglass slams onto the splintered wood. One final ultimatum remains: drink or die before the sands of time run out. Fear consumes the young disciple as the weight of the gamble sets in. The silent master watches in disbelief as the situation spirals out of control. The arrogant veteran points his finger, demanding a judge for this twisted game. Massive jars of lethal spirits arrive, sealing the fate of everyone present. The vapor itself reeks of mortality, a liquid poison disguised as wine. Jinbak reasons that a quick death by liquor is better than a slaughter. With a roar of desperation, the boy begins chugging the soul-shattering brew. Handong stands paralyzed while the crowd watches the legendary drink claim its victim. His vision blurs and his body screams as the liquid fire takes hold. Every nerve ending ignites, leaving the boy on the brink of total collapse. The veteran roars with laughter, certain this liquid fire will end the boy. But the room begins to blur as the lethal poison takes its toll. Vision fades and focus slips while the boy's consciousness enters a dark void. Deep within his chest, a dormant heart suddenly ignites with forbidden power. From the shadows, the master watches his disciple's hidden monster finally awaken. The boy channels pure energy to burn the toxins right out of him. The veteran stops mid-drink, sensing a terrifying power he cannot explain. Tapping into forbidden arts, the boy purges the poison through his very skin. Terrified, the old warrior realizes this rookie is far from an ordinary man. Despite the agonizing pain, the boy refuses to stop this desperate chugging gamble. The veteran roars in fury, accusing the boy of using energy to cheat. Ignoring the threats, the youth continues to chug the lethal brew without stopping. Suspicion turns to genuine fear as the old warrior senses something is deeply wrong. He slams his hand down, demanding the boy face him with some respect. But the moment contact is made, the veteran realizes he cannot pull away. Terror floods his eyes as he feels his very life force beginning to ebb. A violent surge of energy erupts, pinning the attacker to the boy's side. From the sidelines, the elder watches in horror as the veteran's energy vanishes. The forbidden star-absorbing technique manifests, creating a vortex of pure, stolen power. Clawing desperately for freedom, the warrior finds himself trapped by a bottomless human abyss. The elder screams for the warrior to surrender before the boy's power kills him. Paralyzed by fear, the veteran begs for mercy as his life force is drained. A violent explosion of inner energy tears through the room with a deafening roar. The seasoned fighter is blasted away, his strength completely neutralized by a mere child. Smoke rises from the veteran's broken body as the crowd watches in stunned silence. Handong stares in disbelief, realizing his student has tapped into a forbidden ancient power. Jinbek remains frozen, clutching the jar while a dark aura begins to consume him. The master senses a presence within the boy that should have remained buried forever. Everyone watches the dazed youth, terrified of the monstrous strength he just displayed. A single witness looks on in pure shock as the true horror finally unfolds. The old man stares in horror at the boy who just unleashed impossible power. He demands to know if the child is a secret remnant of the Soyopa. The air turns cold as he recognizes the forbidden star-absorbing sorcery at work. Jinbek stands completely dazed, unaware of the monstrous strength he just displayed. The terrified witnesses whisper about silencing the boy before his secret destroys them. They fear that getting involved with such a dark legacy brings certain death. Realizing he is outmatched, the veteran admits defeat and honors their gamble. The men offer their loyalty, but Jinbek is far too stunned to accept. Without another word, they bolt from the room at blinding speed. Jinbok is left clutching his jar, baffled by their sudden and frantic departure. Instead of a hangover, Jinbek feels a surge of monstrous, unearned energy. A sudden, stabbing pain in his skull warns him of the technique's price. Desperate for clarity, he stumbles outside while his master watches in silence. Handong's gaze remains fixed on the boy, sensing the dormant beast awakening. The bustling marketplace offers no sanctuary from the growing storm within his soul. Cluelessly wandering, Jinbek curses the master who keeps him in the dark. Handong reaches out, but the marketplace is far too crowded for a confrontation. A clumsy laborer crashes into the master, breaking his focus entirely. The impact nearly shatters his disguise before the eyes of the public. Jinbok looks back, unaware that his destiny is walking right behind him. Jinbok realizes the person on the ground is the stranger from before. The bamboo hat falls away, exposing the face hidden beneath the straw. A mysterious woman rises, her intense gaze cutting through the crowded market. The young boy stands paralyzed as his entire reality begins to shatter. He yells in disbelief, shocked to find the stranger is actually a woman. She ignores his outburst, demanding to know how he performed martial arts. Terrified, the boy stammers that he possesses no such combat skills. The woman stares into his eyes, searching for any sign of a lie. Though highly suspicious, she senses no deception in his panicked reaction. With a sharp grunt, she turns away, leaving the boy completely stunned. The mysterious warrior mocks the boy, dismissing his unexpected intervention as a mere trick. Despite her cold demeanor, she offers a brief, unexpected thanks before ending the encounter. Stunned into silence, Jinbok can only watch as his world continues to tilt. Suddenly, she reveals a hidden, venomous serpent coiled tightly around her slender arm. This deadly creature named Hyanga carries a lethal poison that leaves no room for survival. She thrusts the fangs toward him, sending the terrified boy reeling back in horror. With a playful laugh, she dismisses the life-threatening threat as a simple, cruel joke. As she turns to leave, a chilling realization about poison strikes the boy's mind. He desperately calls out to the departing stranger, realizing her secrets might save them. Desperate for a cure, Jinbek questions the stranger about the deadly black silkworm pill. She reveals a chilling expertise, explaining the horrific origin of the insect-borne toxin. A spark of impossible hope ignites within the boy's wide, trembling eyes. He lunges forward, gripping her shoulders while begging for the life-saving antidote. The woman hesitates, demanding to know why a mere child seeks such dangerous medicine. Overjoyed by the chance, he offers to scour the mountains for every necessary herb. She remains cold, weighing whether this desperate boy is worth her time and effort. With time running out, she orders a secret meeting at the mountain's edge tomorrow. As the sun sets, a fragile pact is formed that could change everything. Jinbek flees into the crowded market, desperately clutching the hope of a hidden cure. The shadow-veiled woman tracks his every move, hungry for the truth behind his desperation. Far from the chaos, a majestic estate glows under the dying light of a sunset. A long-lost associate emerges from the halls, calling out to the legendary warrior Handong. Handong enters the manor, his presence heavy with the weight of a forbidden history. Sharp eyes scan the surroundings, searching for any sign of a hidden trap or betrayal. Unsuspecting servants go about their duties while a deadly game of chess begins in secret. Silence falls over the room as the former Asura clan member prepares for the worst. Across a bowl of tea, two men trade pleasantries that mask a lethal, underlying threat. A tense silence settles as the tea is finally set aside. The news of a wise ally's tragic end hangs heavy in the air. An offer of power and safety is extended to the legendary warrior. But Handong snaps back with a name that cuts through the deception. He stands tall, accusing his former comrade of abandoning their slaughtered brothers. Rage burns in his eyes as he questions the traitor's lack of shame. The room falls into a deafening silence as the weight of betrayal settles. Then comes the crushing truth that the king they served is gone. Handong is forced to face a reality far bleaker than he ever imagined. Yijak pleads with Handong to finally abandon his pride and face reality. He claims they must focus on what is possible rather than what is right. Handong scoffs, disgusted that his brother has become a dog for the enemy. A heavy silence falls as Yijak hints that his betrayal isn't so simple. Handong watches closely, realizing there is a secret he hasn't yet uncovered. A sudden vision of a sun-drenched garden reveals a life Yijak once cherished. He remembers a woman whose innocent joy offered a temporary escape from the blood. Yijak confirms the suspicion, admitting his heart was captured by a forbidden peace. Years ago, he began his mission by infiltrating the castle as a lowly soldier. His world shifted forever when he saw a defenseless palanquin hunted by ruthless bandits. After slaughtering every last bandit, Yijak stood alone amidst the settling dust. But his cold warrior heart skipped a beat when he approached the silent carriage. Inside sat the Lord's daughter, a flickering light in a world of endless shadow. Grateful for her life, Lord Yupio welcomed the mysterious savior with open arms. Witnessing the Lord's genuine love for his people moved something deep within the assassin. Their bond grew so profound that whispers of a royal marriage filled the palace. Back in the present, Yijak grips his cup as the heavy truth surfaces. He believes that only through absolute power can he protect those he loves. Handong stares in shock, realizing his brother has completely abandoned their ancient path. To survive the coming war, Yijak insists they must finally change their perspective. Handong's rage boils over as he grits his teeth in pure frustration. He tells Yijak that his talk of peace is nothing but nonsense. If the emperor dies, their fallen brothers will have sacrificed for nothing. Handong lashes out, calling his brother's new perspective a total delusion. The tension between these two former allies reaches a lethal breaking point. Yijak remains cold, claiming his new position demands a different path. Handong shifts his focus, demanding the truth about the mysterious courier. Under an ominous red sky, a terrifying hunch begins to take form. A monstrous new enemy emerges, the legendary right-hand man known for brutality. Handong freezes as he learns this killer is already entering the castle. Handong realizes the castle lords are being forced into a deadly trap. His gaze sharpens as the weight of the coming slaughter sinks in. Without a word, he turns to leave, but his old comrade tries stopping him. The warning is clear. Interfering with the monster Taekwon gang spells certain doom. Yijak begs him to stay, bound by his duty to the castle walls. Handong remains cold, choosing to follow his own path regardless of the cost. Left in silence, the soldier can only watch as his friend walks away. Meanwhile, an ominous shadow looms over the outskirts of the unsuspecting castle. The brutal Taekwon gang hungers for a feast that only blood can provide. With his army losing patience, the final invasion is set to begin tonight. Within the enemy camp, a commander grumbles about the reckless girl who disappeared. But his complaints are silenced by a chilling presence looming right behind him. The mysterious Nyung returns, her calm gaze masking a power that terrifies her men. She corners the trembling official, sensing the treacherous words he spoke in her absence. He begs her to act with propriety, but she knows etiquette cannot save lives. When he mentions a forbidden title, she strikes with a lethal, silencing warning. In this world, one wrong word about the throne brings a swift, painful end. Shaken, the commander orders an immediate message sent to the unsuspecting Anmun castle. As the invasion plans finalize for tomorrow, the girl senses a coming storm. Elsewhere, young Jinbok prepares for a desperate mission to dig up the truth. Nyungyong's cold mask finally slips, revealing a smile that catches her servant off guard. She quickly hides her joy, denying the heart-fluttering change that others have clearly noticed. Deep within Anmun Castle, a secret missive arrives under the cover of midnight. Lord Yu Pyo reads the scroll, his eyes darkening as the true stakes emerge. The trap is set, and the ruler confirms that his long-awaited guests are arriving. He orders the gates opened, welcoming a storm that might burn everything down. From the shadows, the wheels of a grand, deadly conspiracy begin to turn. High above the tiles, Handong watches the castle, a phantom ready to strike. He moves like a ghost, deciphering the hidden intent behind the courier's desperate plea. The Sura clan will no longer remain idle, marking the commander for a bloody end. A predator's gaze narrows, focusing on the inevitable bloodbath that awaits. Below the moonlight, Anmoon Castle stirs with a frantic, hidden energy. Servants toil in silence, unaware they are decorating for their own funeral. Lord Yupio walks the grounds, confirming that the final trap is set, but even the most loyal shadow senses a disturbance in the freezing air. A phantom flicker crosses the courtyard, moving faster than any human eye. Yijak remains silent, his instincts screaming that a monster has arrived. Amidst falling petals, the target finally arrives in a display of hollow grandeur. The commoners whisper in awe, oblivious to the political storm about to break. Taekwongang smiles at the splendor, walking directly into Asura's death trap. Chaos erupts, as a frantic soldier brings news that shatters the commander's peace. Taekwongang demands answers while the shadow of a failed plan looms large. The formidable warrior freezes upon hearing that his primary target has vanished completely. Above the festive castle grounds, the air thickens with the scent of impending betrayal. Miles away, Jinbek wanders the mountain path, his stomach growling in the silent woods. He finally spots her, but the lethal assassin has transformed into a stunning noblewoman. The young boy stands frozen, unable to reconcile this beauty with the cold killer. She demands to know why he is staring at her new, elegant disguise. Hiding her embarrassment, Nyunjong claims the dress is merely a tool for their mission. With the sun setting, they push forward to find the herbs and save everyone. Nyungyong's elegant mask hides a lethal intent as she leads the boy deeper into danger. At the gates of Anmoon Castle, a powerful general arrives with a heavy, suffocating presence. Lord Yupio offers a warm welcome, unaware he is inviting a predator inside. Taekwongang praises the castle's wealth, while his eyes scan for any hidden weaknesses. The atmosphere shifts as the general reminds everyone who truly holds the power here. The ruler tries to maintain peace, ushering the dangerous guest into the inner halls. Suddenly, the veteran commander stops dead, his gaze sharpening on a single target. Among the trembling servants stands a girl who has caught the monster's eye. He demands her name, sending a wave of confusion and dread through the court. With a cold decree, he claims the girl as his own, sparking a new crisis. The long-haired official delivers a chilling ultimatum that shatters the lord's fragile composure. The general heartlessly declares that every life in the castle belongs to the state. He reminds them that his word is law, backed by the emperor's supreme power. A terrified servant gasps as the weight of their grim new reality sinks in. The commander erupts in mocking laughter, relishing the fear he has successfully sown. As the general roughly handles the lord, a hidden comrade watches the humiliation unfold. Suppressed fury burns in the warrior's eyes as he forces himself to remain still. Far from the castle's tension, the scene shifts to the quiet, sun-drenched forest. Nyungyong carefully identifies the medicinal plants required to neutralize the deadly village poison. Jinbok watches her every move, focused on the mission to save his dying people. Nyungyong confirms the antidote might actually work against the deadly silkworm poison. Hope ignites as Jinbek realizes he must rush to Nama Castle immediately. His desperate need to return home leaves the woman suspicious of his identity. Mentioning the girl he failed to save creates a sudden tension between them. Jinbek speaks of Midan with a warmth that complicates their simple alliance. His innocent desire to pick flowers triggers an unexpected coldness from his guide. When he presents a possible herb, her icy silence speaks louder than words. She dismisses him harshly, leaving the boy to struggle with the search alone. Stunned by her sudden hostility, Jinbek wonders what he could have said wrong. Despite his growing hunger and exhaustion, he focuses solely on saving his people. Jinbek stares blankly at the mysterious purple plant he just discovered in the woods. Nyungyong watches him with cold jealousy, until a sudden realization strikes her very soul. Her blood runs cold as she identifies the lethal three-ring herb in his hand. She screams a desperate warning for the boy to stop his suicidal mistake immediately. It is too late, as Jinbek swallows the toxic flora with a single gulp. Terror fills her eyes, knowing this poison mimics the agony of 1,000 biting insects. The boy's face contorts in a sudden spasm as the deadly reaction begins taking hold. He doubles over in pain while the woman watches his life slip away in seconds. Suddenly, he spits the plant out, simply complaining about the incredibly bitter and foul taste. He stands tall and unfazed, leaving his guide completely speechless at his monstrous physical endurance. Nyungyong stares in disbelief as the boy survives the most lethal poison imaginable. She confirms the plant was indeed the deadly three-ring herb that kills in seconds. This anomaly reminds her of the monstrous strength possessed by the village's hidden elders. She wonders if this boy is merely a fool or a master hiding true power. To uncover the truth, she decides to unleash her most venomous companion, Hyanga. While he remains distracted, she prepares a secret test for his legendary physical endurance. She commands her lethal pet to strike the boy with its paralyzing fangs immediately. The white serpent slithers silently through the undergrowth toward its unsuspecting, youthful target. In a blur of motion, the creature lunges from the shadows at lightning speed. The fangs sink deep into his flesh, forcing a sudden cry of genuine pain. Jinbek recoils in terror as a ghostly white serpent strikes from the brush. The lethal predator slithers back to its mistress, its deadly work supposedly done. A sharp cry rings out as the boy realizes something bit his leg. Nyong plays the fool, dismissing the attack as a mere insect sting. He hunts through the tall grass, completely oblivious to the poison in his veins. The woman watches with bated breath, waiting for his heart to finally stop. Confusion washes over him as he questions the strange sensation spreading through his limbs. He flashes a carefree smile, insisting he only feels a mild, tingling numbness. A cold sweat breaks across her face as she witnesses the impossible happen. She stares at a monster who just shrugged off a lethal death sentence. Jinbek presents the gathered herbs, unaware his efficiency has genuinely rattled the woman. She forces a laugh while realizing this boy's hidden potential is far too dangerous. Claiming she forgot a vital tool, the mysterious woman prepares to make her move. She glances back with a predatory gaze, ready to activate her final escape plan. A sudden explosion of white smoke leaves Jinbek standing in a cloud of confusion. He stares at the empty space where she stood, wondering why she abandoned him. The boy questions if this dramatic disappearance is normal for a true martial artist. Suddenly, a heavy exhaustion washes over him as he lets out a deep yawn. His limbs grow heavy and his mind fogs, questioning this sudden, unnatural lethargy. The world fades to black as a strange sleepiness finally claims his consciousness. Giving in to exhaustion, Jinbek collapses into the grass for a much-needed rest. He drifts into a deep slumber as the peaceful sounds of nature surround him. Suddenly, his body begins to react, surging with a mysterious and ancient golden energy. While he sleeps, his latent power awakens, transforming his rest into a spiritual evolution. Miles away, a grim procession cuts through the scorched earth of the wasteland. The crimson-eyed pursuer leads her captives toward the looming gates of Hyangjo Castle. Among the prisoners, the village elder remains bound, his fate hanging by a thread. The hunter demands answers about the boy who nearly took her life in battle. She recalls the terrifying moment a simple rifle blast felt like a god's wrath. The old man stops in his tracks, staring silently at the vast, unforgiving sky. The village elder watches in shock as a legendary seal begins to shatter. Deep within the boy, a dormant and terrifying energy finally screams for release. A blinding core of power manifests, threatening to consume his very soul. The scene shifts to a quiet room where the morning sun filters through. Peace is a fragile illusion as the light reveals a desperate struggle. Suddenly, Jinbek jolts awake, his body drenched in cold, agonizing sweat. He cries out for his grandfather, the pain of the transformation tearing him apart. Handong watches over him, his heart heavy with the weight of a choice. The master remains silent, knowing the path ahead leads only to more blood. He reveals a mysterious orb, prepared to use a power he swore to bury. Consciousness returns as cold sweat drapes across a face haunted by lingering nightmares. Years ago, a desperate elder performed a ritual to seal a terrifying, golden power. He begged for forgiveness, knowing the burden he was forcing upon his only grandson. With a final prayer, he suppressed the energy, hoping it would remain forever dormant. A broken whisper escapes parched lips, calling out for a man long since gone. Suddenly, Jinbek bolts upright in the grass, his scream echoing through the silent forest. Heart racing and vision blurred, the boy struggles to separate reality from the vision. He sits alone in the wilderness, wondering if that memory was just a dream. Meanwhile, under the cover of night, a distant palace glows with a sinister warmth. Corrupt officials feast in celebration, completely unaware of the monster currently waking up. Inside the opulent castle, corrupt officials mask their greed behind a facade of hospitality. Amidst the hollow laughter, a silent guest watches the growing rot from within. They toast to tomorrow's grand banquet, oblivious to the storm gathering at the gates. The castle lord's smile hides a lethal agenda regarding the coming day's public address. A sudden demand for a decision shatters the peace as a cup hits the table. Without warning, a suffocating aura of killing intent suddenly floods the entire room. The mask slips as the lord demands to know where their true loyalty lies. Tension thickens until the silence becomes a weapon, daring anyone to speak the truth. He leans in with a predator's gaze, forcing his guest to finally choose sides. Nearby, nervous officials whisper that a country with a child ruler faces certain disaster. The Lord demands total unity, warning that personal feelings will lead to their ruin. Handong ignores the outburst, slowly finishing his drink as the room falls silent. He places the cup down with a deliberate, haunting click against the wood. He reminds the table that shifting loyalty away from the emperor is a rebellion. The air turns frigid as he asks if they are committing high treason. Shock and terror wash over the officials as the hidden truth is finally bared. The Lord erupts in fury, screaming at the young man for his insolent tongue. His face twists into a mask of rage while others scramble to de-escalate. The captain of the guard frantically pleads for an immediate apology to save them. Handong's icy stare remains fixed on his prey, refusing to utter a single word. Taewi erupts in fury, branding the silent warrior and ignorant child for his defiance. The surrounding officials tremble, warning that insulting the chancellor carries a death sentence. Losing his appetite for blood and food alike, the Lord demands his immediate departure. With a final sneer, the tyrant storms out, his heavy footsteps echoing through the hall. The guard captain watches in horror as his political world crumbles in a heartbeat. One by one, the remaining nobles rise, cursing the ruined feast and the tension. They scold Handong for his recklessness before vanishing into the cold night air. Silence finally descends on the room, leaving the captain alone with his mounting fears. Handong approaches the broken man, offering a rare apology for the chaos he unleashed. But the captain simply smiles, accepting the blame for waiting too long to act. Handong calmly dismisses his subordinates to face the coming storm alone. Heavy footsteps echo through the courtyard as the tension reaches a breaking point. Lord Taewi marches through the palace, surrounded by a wall of elite guards. Unbeknownst to the tyrant, a cold pair of eyes watches from the shadows. Boiling with pure indignation, the Lord vows to make his enemies pay dearly. Panic spreads as the guard captain desperately orders maximum security around the quarters. Above the brewing chaos, the silent night sky offers a deceptive sense of peace. Sentries stand alert, unaware that their steel will soon be tested by monsters. A lethal predator looms over the unsuspecting guards, waiting for the perfect moment. With a ghost-like touch, the hunter finally descends to claim his prize. Handong tracks his target to the heart of the heavily guarded palace. With a cold resolve, he prepares to draw his blade for the kill. Suddenly, a lethal presence appears behind him, catching the master off guard. The captain warns that a loud confrontation will only bring unwanted attention. Realizing the stakes, Handong reluctantly agrees to move the fight elsewhere. They stand alone in the courtyard as the tension reaches a breaking point. The captain declares he cannot ignore Handong's dangerous actions any longer. Knowing words are useless now, Handong prepares for an inevitable bloody clash. He grips his hilt tightly, ready to unleash his forbidden monstrous power. In a flash of steel, the two warriors finally collide in absolute silence. The air screams as their blades meet in a shower of sparks. Neither warrior gives an inch as the force of the impact vibrates through them. Their eyes lock in a silent battle of wills amidst the grinding steel. Handong pushes his limits, while the captain begins to feel the crushing pressure. A massive surge of energy erupts as their killing intent finally peaks. The resulting shockwave tears through the courtyard, leveling everything in its path. Forced apart by the explosion, they skid across the broken earth. Exhausted and bloodied, the two men catch their breath before a sealed gate. The captain realizes that holding back will only lead to his certain death. He unleashes a terrifying green aura, finally deciding to end this lethal game. Handong accepts the challenge as his blade begins to hum with forbidden power. But before the final blow, the earth erupts with a violent, rhythmic tremor. The duel halts as a hidden cave entrance splits the ground wide open. Dust billows from the darkness, while a terrifying presence begins to manifest. Perched high above, the captain watches in disbelief as the secret is revealed. A single footstep echoes through the silence as someone emerges from the depths. The captain's face pales as he stares at a man who shouldn't exist. Lord Yupyo stands before them, appearing completely unfazed by the surrounding chaos. The sight of the missing castle lord sends waves of confusion through everyone. Now the captain must question everything he knew about the master he served. Lord Yupyo stands before the ancient guardian, a ghost returning from the grave. With a single touch, the hidden mechanism of the stone lion finally clicks. The mountain itself groans as the secret path to the underworld slowly opens. The heavy weight of this hidden truth is visible in his cold, piercing eyes. The woman wonders if this small fortune will satisfy the greedy Lord Taewi. She reveals a glowing treasure originally meant for her own daughter's wedding day. Confusion turns to dread as she realizes the true price of her family's survival. Suddenly, the Lord's calm facade shatters into a terrifying display of pure authority. He reminds her that she is nothing more than a pawn in his game, A chilling threat against her daughter leaves her paralyzed by a soul-crushing fear. The palace air grows cold as Handong prepares for an inevitable and bloody confrontation. Cold commands echo through the courtyard, demanding the tribute be delivered before dawn. A woman's silent despair mirrors the hopelessness of those trapped by the Lord's greed. She moves like a ghost, carrying her family's only hope past the watchful guards. On the rooftops, the guard captain faces the man who shouldn't even exist. Handong delivers a chilling insult, laughing at the captain's inability to see the truth. The officer flees into the night, unable to handle the weight of Handong's presence. A single torch is lit, piercing the suffocating darkness of the hidden mountain passage. Deep underground, the true source of the region's corruption finally comes into view. Riches and forbidden weapons lie waiting in the dark to fuel a coming war. Screams of the innocent echo through the damp, lightless cages of the hidden dungeon. Handong stares in horror as the true scale of the Lord's cruelty is revealed. Meanwhile, the sound of chilling laughter drifts from the palace across the moonlit sky. Lord Yupio revels in his stolen wealth, clutching a chest of forbidden gold. He sits across from the captain, a man desperate to please his greedy master. But the atmosphere suddenly shifts as the Lord's expression turns cold and demanding. He sneers at the offering, claiming that gold alone is no longer enough. The captain trembles, realizing that his life hangs by a single, fraying thread. It is not mere treasure the Lord seeks, but something far more valuable. He demands absolute proof of loyalty to the Chancellor, sealing a dark, deadly pact. To demand absolute proof, the Lord recounts a gruesome tale of ultimate sacrifice. He suggests that any obstacle standing in the Chancellor's way must be purged immediately. The captain trembles, realizing the true, horrific cost of the mission being proposed. A twisted, greedy grin spreads across the Lord's face as his trap finally closes. A horrific ultimatum is issued, demanding the bloody removal of a high-ranking official's arm. Meanwhile, a heavy downpour masks the growing tension within a silent, distant manner. Handong sits alone in the shadows, his mind weighed down by the past. His companion approaches through the gloom, sensing the deep unrest within his weary soul. He stares into the void, struggling to voice the heavy burdens he currently carries. She insists on sharing his burden, reminding him that no secret should stand between them. Handong's icy blue gaze sharpens as he prepares for a truth he never expected. His companion speaks of the man who supposedly cared for her like a son. But Handong's disappointment grows as the shadow of Lord Yupio's true nature emerges. She whispers of a mask worn by a monster, hiding a darkness beneath the light. To the world, her father was a saint who lived for his people and country. Yet, she reveals that this noble image was nothing more than a carefully crafted lie. The chilling truth shatters the silence as she names her father's real killer. Handong recoils in shock, demanding to know why such a horrific betrayal took place. He stares at her in disbelief, his mind reeling from this sudden, blood-soaked revelation. She vows never to forget the day her world was destroyed by a greedy man. Handong faces a desperate plea to join the fight against the treacherous Yupio. She vows to stop turning a blind eye to her father's horrific, evil deeds. Meanwhile, the bustling city center prepares for a celebration of immense proportions. A weary traveler searches for his companions, fearing that Handong has truly vanished. He stares at the growing mob, confused by the strange energy filling the air. Locals whisper about a grand banquet being held for the influential Lord Taewi. The mention of exotic delicacies briefly pulls his focus away from his grim search. Guards violently clear the path as a grand palanquin enters the chaotic marketplace. He watches in awe, wondering what powerful figure is riding inside that grand carriage. The missing girl finally appears, hidden away within the luxury of the passing palanquin. The girl hears a desperate voice calling out from the chaotic crowd. Jinbek lunges forward, frantically trying to stop the moving palanquin. She instantly recognizes the boy but considers pretending they are total strangers. In a moment of pure clumsiness, Jinbek faceplants hard into the dirt. He groans in agony, looking far less like a hero than expected. Guards prepare to strike until the girl claims him as an acquaintance. He demands to know why she vanished so suddenly the night before. The girl questions his noble status after seeing his garments yesterday. She remembers a vision of elegance that contradicts this pathetic display. Suddenly, a terrifying realization flashes in Jinbek's eyes as the truth hits. Jinbek desperately begs to join the girl, claiming she owes him a massive debt. He puts on a pathetic display of pleading that tests her very patience. Guilt flickers in her eyes as she remembers abandoning him to the cold streets. She finally relents on one condition. He must remain absolutely silent during the event. Before entering the inner sanctum, he must trade his rags for something far more prestigious. They step into a world of opulence where dancers move to a rhythmic, ancient beat. Powerful men laugh in the shadows, unaware of the peasant now walking among them. A legendary feast is unveiled, boasting delicacies that most commoners only see in dreams. Jinbek stands frozen in shock, his mind racing at the sheer scale of wealth. She drags him forward, warning that the true danger lies within the coming speeches. She watches him closely, still seeing the clueless country boy beneath the expensive silk. Her gaze lingers, searching for any hint of the warrior she suspected him to be. Jinba can't contain his excitement, completely unaware of the dangerous eyes tracking his movements. Within the silent halls of the palace, a simple question finally breaks the heavy tension. He asks for her name, catching the noblewoman completely off guard with his bluntness. Laughing off the awkwardness, he insists that partners in crime should at least be acquainted. She hesitates, knowing that revealing her true identity could change their fates forever. Finally, she offers a name, while he proudly introduces himself as the boy called Jinbek. Nearby, the elite palace guards stand like statues, their blades ready for any sudden disturbance. One guard watches in silence, his eyes filled with a mystery that threatens their mission. The grand hall of Anmun Castle falls silent as the powerful elite gather. The host welcomes his guests, announcing the arrival of a legendary visitor. With a booming introduction, the high-ranking Tewi steps into the flickering light. This is Lord Upio, a man whose greed is matched only by his influence. Behind him stand masked warriors, silent shadows ready to strike on his command. He takes the stage, his voice carrying the weight of a crumbling empire. Within the palace, the young emperor lies bedridden, unable to stop the coming storm. Upio declares the throne effectively vacant, sparking a cold chill among the nobles. The room erupts in hushed whispers as he demands a new, illegal allegiance. As the treasonous ultimatum hangs in the air, the host watches in grim silence. The Tewi curls his lip into a sinister grin before delivering a final ultimatum. He demands a total purge of anyone who dares to spark a bloody rebellion. Terror ripples through the assembly as the nobles realize no one is truly safe. Amidst the tension, the mysterious captain remains silent, his piercing gaze tracking every move. Upio mocks their cowardice, claiming the greatest threats always hide in plain sight. His eyes narrow with lethal intent as he prepares to expose the hidden traitor. He calls out the captain of the guard, Yi Jok, the man everyone trusted. One small spark can burn down an entire kingdom if left unchecked for long. With a sudden surge of power, a golden energy trap snaps around the warrior. The court watches in absolute horror as the trap is finally sprung on Handong. The golden trap snaps shut, ensnaring the legendary warrior in an inescapable web. Panic erupts throughout the court as the man they trusted is suddenly hunted. Jinbek watches in disbelief, realizing his mentor has fallen into a lethal trap. Handong grinds his teeth, feeling the weight of a betrayal he never saw coming. He pours every ounce of his monstrous strength into breaking the shimmering threads. Even his legendary blade fails to nick the supernatural material binding his spirit. Fresh restraints coil around him, sealing his fate as the ambush reaches its climax. For the first time, the invincible Asura finds himself completely powerless and exposed. Upio cackles, explaining that this specialized diamond net completely nullifies inner energy. The villainous lord addresses the assembly, turning a cold-blooded execution into a political victory. Upio weaves a web of lies, claiming his betrayal is actually supreme loyalty. Trapped behind the energy-nullifying mesh, Handong's disbelief turns into a cold, sharp fury. The guard captain steps forward, joining the theater of deception to condemn his former ally. He claims his daughter revealed the truth, painting Handong as a selfish, power-hungry monster. The accusations of a forced marriage for political gain leave the legendary warrior speechless. Muscles strain and knuckles whiten as Handong tries to shatter the unbreakable diamond threads. Through gritted teeth, he realizes the true depth of Upio's sickening political machinations. Upio basks in the moment, using this manufactured crisis to solidify his absolute authority. Before the stunned assembly, the villainous lord declares a public execution to silence all dissent. As the heavy wheels of a torture device rumble forward, the hero's end seems inevitable. A massive cauldron of boiling water is rolled out for a public execution. Jinbak and his companion watch in horror as the barbaric spectacle begins. Bound by unbreakable diamond threads, the legendary warrior is completely immobilized. Guards hoist him high above the steam, preparing to drop their prey. Lord Upio sneers, declaring that treason will be met with a slow death. With a simple wave of his hand, the villain orders the final descent. The hero is lowered into the scalding depths as onlookers gasp in terror. While the tyrant laughs, Handong's rage reaches a boiling point beyond human limits. Refusing to die like a dog, he ignites his forbidden internal energy. A massive shockwave shatters the cauldron, sending a violent deluge across the floor. Jinbek and the girl watch in absolute horror as the execution chamber erupts. The arrogant Lord Upio screams in agony as the scalding deluge hits him. Through the boiling steam, a a lethal shadow emerges with a blade drawn for blood. Realization hits Jinbek like a physical blow as he recognizes the monster's true form. The mysterious warrior prepares his blade, humming with a terrifying, ancient power. He strikes like a lightning bolt, soaring toward the tyrant who dared mock him. With one surgical strike, he cleaves through the air to break the trap. The intruder lands as the crowd realizes Handong is still trapped inside the net. Refusing to stay caged, the hero channels his forbidden energy through his very veins. With a final roar of power, he shatters his remaining bonds into 1,000 pieces. Lord Yupio's smug face twists into pure terror as his trap fails. He screams for his guards to seize the man who should be dead. Handong watches with cold intensity as the tyrant hides behind his military lapdog. The captain scoffs at the chaos, unaware of the monster he's truly facing. Exhaling a breath of killing intent, the legendary warrior prepares his final strike. He lunges forward like a phantom, leaving the terrified guards with no escape. With godlike reflexes, he catches a flying spear meant to pierce his heart. His grip tightens around the wood, channeling forbidden energy into the stolen weapon. A single swing sends the elite forces flying as the captain watches in horror. Handong becomes a whirlwind of destruction, reclaiming the battlefield with every violent rotation. Handong stands firm, gripping a stolen spear as his aura begins to surge. He realizes there is no way out of this trap except through total violence. The low-level guards tremble in terror, paralyzed by the sudden shift in power. The captain scoffs, remarking that it has been years since seeing Handong's spear skills. Lord Yupio's face contorts with rage as he screams about the defiant rebel. Turning to his hidden reinforcements, the tyrant demands to know why they are waiting. Deep in the shadows, a hidden assassin flexes, sensing a truly worthy opponent. These masked killers decide it is finally time to join the bloody dance. Surrounded on all sides, the two warriors prepare to cut through the palace forces. The panicked lord bellows for his men to strike before they are all slaughtered. Handong finally unleashes his forbidden power against the overwhelming wave of palace guards. Every strike is a death sentence, sending his enemies flying with bone-shattering force. The legendary warrior moves with a grace that defies human limits and comprehension. No matter how many soldiers charge, they are simply fodder for his stolen spear. The floor becomes a graveyard of broken bodies as the massacre continues unabated. He looks down at the fallen, calling them nothing more than pathetic weaklings. Lord Yupio watches in pure horror as his iron-fisted authority crumbles instantly. With cold blue eyes, Handong locks onto his true target for the final kill. He lunges forward, realizing this is the perfect moment to end the tyrant's life. But out of the shadows, a hidden assassin strikes with a lethal, unexpected counter. Handong's momentum suddenly grinds to a halt as a new threat emerges. A mysterious warrior blocks the path, questioning where his brother is going. These red-masked killers represent the final line of defense for the tyrant. The blood-stained hall becomes the stage for an unexpected and lethal confrontation. Tensions reach a breaking point as both killers lock eyes for the kill. Handong lunges forward with a strike meant to end the fight instantly. Steel clashes against steel in a blur of impossible speed and destructive energy. The warrior is stunned when his lethal blow is effortlessly parried away. He realizes his opponent possesses skill far beyond any ordinary palace guard. Lord Yupio screams for blood while his captain watches in silent anticipation. A shadowy witness watches the chaos unfold from the safety of the palace walls. Handong's eyes ignite with fury as he realizes the true depth of the betrayal. A mysterious masked warrior blocks his path, claiming a brotherhood forged in blood. The legendary fighter narrows his gaze, preparing to unleash power beyond human limits. Jinbok stands frozen in terror as the sheer scale of the battle shatters reality. The young girl finally understands the cruel trap laid by the Empire's corrupt masters. Jinbok senses the overwhelming energy radiating from the elite masked killers. Steel shrieks against steel as two monsters collide in a blur of lethal precision. Desperation takes hold as Jinbok cries out for the man who saved his life. He reveals the truth. The unstoppable monster before them is his master. The girl recoils in horror as the true identity of the master is revealed. Lethal red daggers rain down from a masked killer seeking a quick kill. Handong spins his staff into a blur, shattering every projectile with pinpoint precision. A razor-sharp blade grazes his cheek as the speed of battle reaches impossible levels. He stares down the twins of death, feeling the weight of their murderous intent. The assassins mock his skill, realizing they finally found a worthy opponent to break. Knowing he cannot win alone, the captain demands they strike as one single force. Handong hesitates for a moment, unsure if his dormant power will still answer him. Primal energy surges through their steel as they prepare a strike to end everything. Two legends unleash a cataclysmic storm of lightning that tears the very air apart. The masked assassins watch from above, mocking the desperate struggle unfolding below them. Handong lunges forward, unleashing the forbidden cloud-frame spear with earth-shattering force. Beside him, the captain ignites his soul to manifest the legendary Dragon Blood Slash. The killers laugh, claiming these flashy displays will never even graze their skin. But the two distinct energies begin to spiral into a single, impossible vortex. A colossal dragon of pure light roars to life, defying every law of nature. Terror finally strikes the assassins as they realize they are completely outmatched. Jinbok and the corrupt lord watch in horror as the palace begins to crumble. The combined strike detonates with the power of a falling star, consuming everything. When the smoke clears, only ruins remain of the once mighty execution grounds. Handong and the captain struggle to breathe after their world-shattering final strike. The palace hall stands in ruins as the dust of the explosion finally settles. Looking over the debris, the captain wonders if their desperate gamble actually succeeded. Suddenly, a lethal streak of crimson energy tears through the silent, smoky air. Before he can react, a hidden blade of light pierces straight through the captain. Handong watches in absolute horror as his comrade is struck down in an instant. The captain's body hits the ground as a frantic scream echoes through the hall. Jinbek watches the tragedy unfold, unable to believe his eyes as his mentor falls. Handong howls toward the heavens, his spirit breaking alongside his comrade's dying breath. The assassins discard their broken masks, revealing the ancient monsters hidden beneath. Handong stares in disbelief as the two ancient monsters loom over the carnage. Crimson energy surges through the elder's blade, signaling a lethal return of the favor. Jinbek's voice cracks as he screams for his fallen comrade to get back up. The legendary warrior finally buckles under the weight of his own exhausted power. Panic sets in as Handong realizes his inner energy has completely run dry. Clinging to the frozen ground, he watches his survival slip through his fingers. The assassin towers above him like a god of death ready to strike. A desperate cry for mercy echoes across the blood-soaked palace courtyard. Even the elite killers pause when the young boy suddenly interrupts their execution. Jinbok boldly steps forward, ordering the monsters to apologize to his fallen friends. The elite assassins stand frozen as the young boy's voice shatters the silence. Jinbok roars with a fury that defies the monsters standing before him. Even the legendary Handong cannot believe the reckless courage of his young companion. The boy demands an apology from the very men who just slaughtered a battalion. Watching from the shadows, the noble girl fears his boldness will be his end. Suddenly, the killers recognize the brat from a chance encounter at a restaurant. A twisted smile spreads across the assassin's face as he prepares to strike. The monster lunges forward to tear the defenseless boy to bloody shreds. Days earlier, Handong stood with the boy under the scorching desert sun. He promised to teach one final move to save the boy from certain death. The boy channels his raw energy for a move he barely understands. He screams the name of the forbidden art before lunging at the killer. The arrogant assassin stares in shock as the boy's fist actually connects. Smoldering energy erupts from the impact, proving the brat is no ordinary child. Exhaustion instantly hits him, his face twisting with the pain of the backlash. Handong watches in disbelief, stunned by this impossible display of martial talent. The boy's desperate follow-up fails, as his strength evaporates in an instant. A lethal blow crushes his spirit, sending him spiraling into the cold dirt. The veteran sneers at the fallen novice, dismissing his strike as pure luck. Yet they remain cautious, fearing the boy's ability to absorb their very souls. Handong freezes as he recognizes the legendary technique the boy just unleashed. The elder assassin roars in fury, descending like a demon to crush the brat. Lethal steel claws glint with a murderous intent that signals a swift end. Jinbek screams in agony as the sheer force of the counterattack strikes home. A brilliant burst of azure energy shatters the darkness, intercepting the killing strike. Gasping for air, Handong draws his forbidden blade, his spirit refusing to break. He commands the boy to flee, taking the full weight of the assault himself. The monster merely smirks, his hands glowing with a crimson aura of malice. With a desperate swing, Handong cleaves through the barrage of lethal energy needles. His eyes ignite with blue fire as he prepares for a final dance. Jinbek screams for his mentor as the sounds of clashing steel echo through the halls. Suddenly, a powerful force yanks the boy back before he can reach the battlefield. It is the missing girl, her hands trembling as she desperately pulls him to safety. They huddle in the shadows while the palace becomes a graveyard of fallen soldiers. She shrieks for him to flee, knowing his presence only puts them both in danger. Frozen in silence, the young boy can only watch as his world falls apart. Nearby, the air explodes with forbidden energy as the legendary warrior fights for his life. A crimson spray paints the air, marking the brutal end of a once proud defender. She begs him once more, insisting that survival is the only thing that matters now. She vows to sacrifice herself, leaving the boy speechless at her terrifyingly selfless resolve. Jinbak refuses to abandon the man who risked everything for his family. The girl watches in horror as the young boy prepares for a suicidal stand. An elite killer looms over him, mocking the boy's pathetic, fading strength. With a murderous grin, the assassin prepares to end the child's life forever. But a sudden surge of power makes the veteran warrior freeze in his tracks. Jinbaek puts everything into one final, desperate execution of a forbidden technique. The air screams as golden energy spirals around his small, trembling fist. The assassin scoffs, believing the boy's repeated failure is a foregone conclusion. Arrogance turns to pure terror as the technique finally ignites with blinding intensity. A massive shockwave erupts as the impossible strike finally finds its mark. The veteran assassin's eyes widen as he witnesses the impossible unfolding before him. Pure disbelief freezes his blood, while a golden aura begins to consume the air. Against all odds, the boy's desperate strike finally connects with bone-shattering force. But the cost of such forbidden power is more than his body can handle. Jinbak collapses into the dirt, his strength completely spent after that miraculous blow. Lord Yupio screams for blood, demanding his men finish the warrior immediately. A piercing voice suddenly cuts through the chaos, halting the execution in its tracks. Standing tall, the once frightened girl commands the entire guard to lower their steel. Her true authority is finally revealed, as she shields her allies from the corruption. Even Handong watches in silence, realizing this girl is far more than she seems. The girl reveals a secret identity that could shake the very foundations of the empire. She stands alone against the world's deadliest killers to protect her fallen comrades. A single threat to their reputations halts the elite assassins in their tracks. Even the corrupt Lord Yupio trembles as her true authority finally comes to light. She demands an end to the senseless violence before the situation spirals further. The killers grow restless, wondering if this woman truly understands the danger she faces. Lord Yupio screams in terror, realizing they have targeted the wrong person. He reveals her father is a legendary figure who commands the heavens themselves. The realization of his near-fatal mistake forces the greedy official to concede. With the slaughter averted, the survivors are forced into a tense and uneasy retreat. The elite killers hesitate, choosing greed over finishing their bloody work today. Handong collapses in agony while his young ally lies motionless on the floor. The corrupt lord retreats into the shadows, taking the mysterious girl with him. Every muscle in Handong's body screams as his legendary strength hits its limit. She walks away without a word, leaving the broken warriors behind in silence. Jinbek remains trapped in a deep slumber, his life hanging by a thread. Handong recalls the boy's desperate smile and the lethal poison destroying his soul. The girl's expression remains cold, knowing the price of the deal she made. The fallen warrior curses his true enemy as a new rage ignites within. Handong struggles against his wounds, desperate to chase the cowards who fled. But a familiar hand stops him as a sudden presence halts the chaos. The guard captain stands before him, no longer the pawn he appeared to be. Rage boils in Handong's blood as he stares at the man who betrayed him. The captain reveals his true allegiance, claiming every sin was for their home. He lived a lie to infiltrate the enemy's ranks and find a killing blow. Handong listens in stunned silence as the narrative of his execution completely flips. The corruption was too deep to ignore, forcing a hero to play the villain. A final apology comes with the truth that his rescue was planned all along. Handong stands his ground, demanding an explanation for the chaos surrounding them. He moves to uncover the truth hidden behind the palace's heavy doors. Suddenly, a group of legendary warriors who vanished long ago finally reappear. The sight leaves the witnesses paralyzed as the impossible unfolds before them. These missing masters were not dead, but were hidden away from the world. Handong realizes the staggering depth of the deception played by his allies. The enemy had been kidnapping every official who dared to oppose his rule. Vast fortunes were stolen from the innocent to fund this dark, secret empire. Handong sneers, refusing to believe that such atrocities could ever serve justice. The captain finally turns his back on the corruption he once served. Disbelief ripples through the crowd as the Lord's dark secrets are finally exposed. Enraged survivors demand justice for the atrocities committed within the castle walls. They charge blindly at the man who has decided to end the lies. A single, blinding motion leaves the room stained in fresh, crimson blood. The survivors freeze in terror as their comrades fall before they can even blink. He effortlessly catches the next assailant, hoisting him into the air like a doll. A chilling aura fills the room as he looks down upon his former allies. He reveals his true strength, declaring that their foolishness has finally run out. Lord Yupio stands over the carnage, demanding to know if they crave more blood. Panic erupts among the onlookers as they witness the corrupt official's sudden, terrifying transformation. Even Handong is left speechless by the sheer pressure radiating from the rotund man. Gasping for air, the legendary warrior struggles to understand this impossible shift in power. The guards watch in horror as Upo effortlessly hoists a man like paper. With a cold glare, the lord vows to slaughter every traitor standing before him. Desperate for survival, the remaining soldiers launch a frantic, all-out charge against their master. A blinding, golden energy erupts from Upo's palm as he readies a forbidden strike. A massive explosion of pure power incinerates the front line in a single heartbeat. The heroes watch in disbelief as the corrupt official reveals his hidden, monstrous strength. A desperate volley of arrows rains down upon the corrupt official. Upo scoffs at the pathetic attempt, catching the projectiles in midair. A golden barrier erupts, rendering every single strike completely useless. With a sinister smirk, he mocks their weakness like a predator playing with prey. The air trembles as his hidden inner energy begins to surge uncontrollably. Ascending like a vengeful god, he vows to purge every traitor in his sight. He descends like a falling star, unleashing a catastrophic beam of pure destruction. The ground shatters as the front line is instantly consumed by golden flames. Handong watches in horror as the monster targets the innocent without hesitation. A blinding explosion levels the courtyard, leaving nothing but screams and ashes behind. Handong rushes to his fallen ally as the world crumbles around them. A gruesome wound marks the price of their desperate rebellion against the crown. He drags the wounded captain toward safety, while the palace becomes a tomb. Golden pillars of death incinerate the floor, trapping the survivors like cornered rats. Despite the agony, the captain urges Handong to end this nightmare immediately. A heavy silence falls as the legendary warrior weighs the cost of victory. The captain stares in disbelief as Handong makes a final, selfless choice. He vows that the sins of Enmun Castle will be settled here forever. The corrupt lord laughs maniacally, unleashing a power that defies all human logic. Handong gazes up at the levitating tyrant, knowing only one will survive today. Handong roars a final challenge, gripping his spear with world-ending intent. The corrupt lord merely smiles, mocking the man he once called a servant. A cold, piercing gaze reveals that the time for words has finally ended. He blurs into motion, narrowly evading beams of incinerating golden light. Death whistles past his ears as he maneuvers through a storm of energy. With a thunderous leap, he closes the distance to strike the levitating tyrant. A flurry of lethal strikes rains down, pushing the monster to his limit. Forbidden spear techniques collide violently with a barrier of ancient, golden power. The tyrant recoils in shock as his ornate robes are shredded by steel. Panting heavily, Handong realizes this monster is far more dangerous than he imagined. The corrupt lord snarls in fury, his precious official robes finally torn to shreds. Beneath the silk lies a monstrous physique, overflowing with a terrifying, golden divine pressure. A legendary artifact pulses within his flesh, radiating the heat of a miniature sun. Handong stands frozen as he witnesses a transformation that defies every law of nature. Realization dawning, he recognizes the mythic power of the 8 jade talismans at last. The tyrant laughs, revealing he has embedded the fierce tiger talisman into his body. With a simple gesture, he channels enough raw energy to vaporize an entire army. Like a descending god of wrath, the monster lunges forward to end the rebellion. Handong desperately braces his weapon against a tidal wave of incinerating golden light. The entire palace trembles as their powers collide in a catastrophic, blinding explosion. Handong is sent reeling, as the tyrant's overwhelming power finally connects. His legendary spear lies shattered on the floor like a useless toy. Pain surges through his body while he struggles to even stay conscious. Standing tall, the monster vows to deliver his head to their enemies. Golden energy coils around his fist like a hungry, predatory serpent. He prepares a final, merciless blow to erase the warrior forever. Watching from the sidelines, the captain screams in a fit of pure desperation. A blinding flash of light consumes the hall in a roar of destruction. Thick white smoke blankets the scene of the catastrophic impact. As the mist clears, the captain stares at a sight beyond all belief. Jinbok stares at his trembling hands, unable to fathom the power he just unleashed. From the ground, Handong stares at the boy who shouldn't have been able to move. His pupils dilate as the crushing weight of his new reality finally sinks in. He wonders how a mere peasant could suddenly wield the strength of a god. Handong screams for him to run, desperate to save the boy from certain death. But Jinbok refuses to move, his voice echoing with a defiance that shakes the hall. The legendary warrior falls silent as the boy reminds him of a sacred promise. He vows to become a monster if it means saving his family from ruin. A cold voice mocks his ambition, calling his dream a pathetic and futile delusion. Without warning, a crushing blow sends the young hero flying into the dark abyss. Jinbok is tossed aside like a rag doll by the monster's overwhelming strength. Lord Yupio stands tall, his body radiating a terrifying, golden killing intent. The corrupt official sneers, claiming even the legendary Yijak is no match. Handong screams in terror as he watches his young apprentice risk everything. A thick cloud of dust settles as the tyrant dismisses the boy's efforts. He prepares to deliver the final blow to the broken warrior on the floor. Suddenly, Jinbek lunges forward with the forbidden left-step fist burst technique. For the first time, the arrogant lord's face twists in genuine shock. The tyrant mocks the boy's strength, completely unfazed by the desperate attack. Jinbek gasps for air, realizing his ultimate strike failed to leave a mark. The corrupt lord decides to finally unleash his true, terrifying power against the boy. They collide in a blinding explosion of gold and desperate, raw, physical strength. Handong watches in disbelief as a mere beginner stands against a literal god. A sudden realization flashes through the legendary warrior's eyes as he witnesses the impossible. He wonders if this child truly possesses the potential to rival a jade talisman. Driven by pure instinct, the boy screams and channels everything into one final strike. The forbidden left-step fist burst erupts, shaking the very foundations of the palace. Through the smoke, the young warrior searches frantically for his vanished, monstrous opponent. Speed beyond comprehension leaves the boy defenseless as the tyrant strikes from the shadows. The monster seizes his throat, mocking the resilience of a brat who should be dead. The young warrior gasps for air as a monstrous hand crushes his throat. Lord Yupio stares down in confusion at the boy's pathetic lack of strength. The tyrant whispers a terrifying question about the legendary jade talisman's hidden location. He pins the child to the floor, desperately searching for the source of power. A sinister realization dawns on the villain as he finds nothing on the surface. He prepares to carve into the boy's flesh to find the treasure buried inside. The monster demands the artifact while radiating a suffocating, golden aura of pure death. Looking into those eyes, the boy finally realizes he is facing a true madman. Refusing to die, a sudden surge of forbidden energy erupts from his desperate grip. The tyrant freezes in shock as he feels a power that defies all logic. The tyrant recoils in horror as he recognizes a legendary, forbidden power. Jinbek unleashes the star-absorbing technique, turning the tide with sheer, raw desperation. But the villain just laughs, claiming his talisman grants him energy like the sea. He slams into the boy, flooding his system with a lethal amount of power. Jinbek's body screams in agony as he fights the urge to simply give up. The monster taunts him, promising a slow descent into a mind-shattering demonic trance. Under the crushing weight of that golden aura, the boy's life begins to fade. Through the haze of pain, his eyes lock onto a single, desperate opening. He realizes the tyrant's greatest strength is actually his only fatal weakness. As the villain screams for his death, Jinbek prepares to end the nightmare forever. With a desperate lunge, Jinbek reaches for the source of the tyrant's godlike power. He plunges his hand into the monster's chest, seizing the glowing jade talisman. Lord Yupio screams in pure agony as his stolen immortality is ripped away. The boy's grip is like iron, refusing to let the panicked official escape. A blinding surge of energy erupts as the forbidden extraction begins to take hold. Terror fills the villain's eyes as his very soul is drained of its strength. Jinbek clenches his teeth, enduring a level of pain no mortal should ever survive. Suddenly, the unstable power of the talisman detonates in a world-shattering explosion. The shockwave levels the palace, consuming both the hero and the fallen god. Silence falls over the ruins as Jinbek lies broken, clutching the ultimate prize. The fallen tyrant glares at the boy who shattered his dreams of godhood. Blood spills from his lips as the reality of his defeat finally sinks in. He reaches out desperately, trying to reclaim the power that is now gone. Both the villain and the hero lie broken amidst the ruined palace floor. The surrounding guards stand frozen, unable to believe the sight before them. Panic spreads through the ranks as they whisper about their master's possible death. A deafening cry erupts through the halls announcing the castle lord has fallen. Handong watches the chaos, his body bearing the heavy price of this victory. A wounded survivor limps through the smoke, searching for his fallen comrades. Handong gathers the unconscious boy, praying his ultimate sacrifice wasn't in vain. Jinbek lies motionless, his spirit shattered by the weight of his sacrifice. Handong desperately channels his inner energy to revive the boy's failing heart. Violent sparks erupt as a hidden, dark power repels the master's touch. Handong watches in horror as he realizes the boy has entered a forbidden state. Jinbek awakens within a demonic trance, radiating a terrifying and untamed aura. News of the tyrant's death spreads like wildfire through the shocked city streets. Amidst the chaos, Yupio's daughter steps forward to reclaim her family's legacy. Her calm authority quickly quells the growing unrest within the castle walls. Elsewhere, a lone pursuer arrives at the mouth of a desolate mountain cave. He follows the trail of blood and steel toward a long-forgotten secret. Handong uncovers the dark truth behind the tyrant's forbidden research inside the mountain cave. Ancient inscriptions reveal the boy's terrifying connection to the legendary 8 jade talismans. As the sun sets on the capital, a new race against time begins. Handong rushes to the infirmary, desperate for any news on the boy's failing health. The physician delivers a grim diagnosis as Jinbek's life hangs by a fraying thread. Pushed beyond his physical limits, the boy's body begins to reject all conventional medicine. One final hope remains: a legendary master hidden within the walls of Sancho Castle. To save his student, Handong must seek out the man known as Master Guanyak. With a heavy heart and unwavering resolve, the master prepares for a perilous journey. The path ahead is long, but for Jinbek, he will challenge the heavens themselves. Handong watches the horizon as the heavy cost of his vengeance finally settles in. An unexpected ally approaches, questioning if he truly regrets destroying the Grand Castle. He stares into the dying sun, claiming he merely corrected a world gone wrong. The path now leads toward Sancho Castle to find a doctor for dying Jinbek. They must secure the 8 jade talismans to stand a chance against their enemies. Although the mission is set, the mysterious ally initially prepares to leave alone, but a sudden change of heart binds them together for the journey ahead. Ensuring the safety of the people becomes a shared goal between the two warriors. A cold smile confirms the pact as they prepare to challenge the heavens themselves. A cryptic bundle is entrusted to Handong, marking the start of a new war. The legendary jade talisman finally changes hands, carrying the weight of a fallen god. Handong stares at the artifact with a gaze that could pierce through fate itself. He reaches out to claim the power that once fueled his greatest enemy's tyranny. Accepting the burden, the warrior vows to safeguard the light against the coming storm. Meanwhile, in a damp cell, an old man remains unbroken despite his heavy chains. A Schroverweisner, carrying a bucket meant for a cruel awakening. Ice-cold water shatters the silence, signaling the start of a brutal interrogation. The crimson-eyed pursuer demands answers, threatening to gouge out the old man's eyes. Cold fury burns as the hunter realizes the prisoner is resisting a deadly pill. Even with the threat of losing his fingers, the elder maintains a defiant silence. The iron bars slam shut as the interrogation reaches a bitter, fruitless end. A powerful new player emerges from the shadows to take command of the hunt. Minister Jucho sneers at the failure, knowing this old man is a master of secrets. He approaches the broken prisoner, acknowledging the strength of a will that won't shatter. But every man has a weakness, and the mention of family strikes a terrifying chord. Desperation explodes in the cell as the price for the legendary scripture is finally revealed. With a cold command, the minister summons a lethal shadow to finish the job. The assassin Guangbaiksa appears, her blades thirsty for the blood of the innocent. She is ordered to hunt the children, leaving the white-haired pursuer frozen in shock. Failure is not tolerated here, and the hunter has officially lost her master's favor. Guangbaiksa smirks, promising a clean kill to her new master. The disgraced pursuer seethes, as she is replaced by a more ruthless killer. Elsewhere, a heavy goodbye hangs in the air between two souls bound by duty. Handong worries for the woman left behind to lead a broken castle, but she stands tall, ready to rule as the new lord of Anmun. With a final look of regret, the legendary warrior departs into the unknown. 3 days later, the wounded Jinbek rests while their carriage travels through wasteland. As the sun sets, the weary travelers finally stop to seek temporary shelter. Alone in the twilight, Handong gazes at the artifact that started this war. He ignites his forbidden energy, preparing to master the talisman's godlike power. Handong unleashes the talisman's raw power, feeling a godlike energy surge through him. Even with minimal effort, the Roaring Tiger token amplifies his strength to terrifying levels. But true mastery requires the 8 Gates divine art, a legendary, long-lost martial technique. His companion watches in awe, realizing they are chasing a power beyond human comprehension. Suddenly, the desert silence is shattered by the thunderous gallop of a bandit horde. These greedy scavengers think they've found an easy payday in a lonely carriage. They have no idea they are charging toward the most dangerous man alive. With a murderous roar, the lead bandit swings his blade, seeking a quick kill. He demands they kneel and surrender everything, unaware his life is already forfeit. In a flash of violence, the sounds of impact echo across the crimson sands. The overconfident bandits realize too late they have picked a fight with the wrong prey. In seconds, the desert floor is littered with the broken bodies of the fallen. Their leader trembles, his bravado shattered by the overwhelming pressure of a true master. Handong stands unmoved, his cold gaze piercing through their pathetic attempts at threats. His companion remains silent, knowing these scavengers are beneath the legendary warrior's notice. Desperate, the bandit laughs and claims they are backed by the powerful Lord Upio. The atmosphere freezes as Handong reveals the very treasure their master died for. Terror strikes as they recognize the golden orb that once belonged to a god. The interrogation begins as the truth about their connection to the artifact surfaces. Even at death's door, the bandit sneers, demanding they beg for the secrets he holds. Handong stares down the bandit leader, whose arrogance is quickly fading into pure uncertainty. Even a legendary warrior cannot ignore the sudden sharp pangs of late-night hunger. Beneath the cold desert sky, a flickering campfire offers a brief moment of peace. The starving scavengers devour their meal, celebrating a feast they have not seen lately. They mock their former master, glad the man with strange eyes is finally dead. Handong demands the truth, forcing the bandits to recount how their paths first crossed. It began with a gruesome discovery, a monk's skeletal remains rotting in the dirt. Among the discarded rags, they found a glowing artifact pulsing with an ancient power. Word of the treasure spread fast, drawing the greedy Lord Yu Pyo from his palace. Trembling in fear, the bandits realized they had unearthed a secret worth more than life. The bandit realizes the glowing orb was merely the start of a terrifying mystery. Long ago, they traded a torn book cover to a lord obsessed with power. Handong's gaze sharpens as he demands the truth behind the secrets on that cover. Though the scavengers are illiterate, they have spent years hunting for the missing pages. With trembling hands, the scavenger finally relinquishes the weathered scraps of a lost legend. These fragments contain forbidden methods to manipulate the very flow of life and blood. Handong probes for more, but the bandit saw only a monk's rotting, skeletal remains. He stares at the ancient script, knowing the legendary 8 gates are finally close. A desperate alliance is forged as Handong offers a bounty for every new discovery. The hunt for the ultimate divine art has begun, and nothing will be the same. They finally reach Sancho Castle, a place whispered to hold their last hope. But the streets are empty of the legendary doctor they desperately need. With no other choice, they secure a room to plan their next move. The local staff offers assistance, unaware of the dying boy in their care. Inside the dim room, the weight of their failure begins to settle in. Jinbok struggles for every breath as the spiritual poison ravages his broken body. Handong offers the boy anything he desires to ease his final moments. Instead of a final prayer, the boy weakly demands a drink of liquor. The sheer audacity of the request proves his spirit hasn't been broken yet. Suddenly, a violent crash outside signals that their enemies have found them. Handong and his companion rush toward the sudden commotion echoing through the halls. Inside the tavern, a group of rowdy bandits terrorizes the staff for slow service. These thugs have no patience, threatening to destroy the business in a drunken rage. A snapping fan silences the room as a calm voice demands their patience. Their companion, a refined scholar, preaches about the natural resolution of all things. The bandits scoff at his sophisticated attitude, caring only for liquor and blood. Suddenly, the leader's attention shifts as he catches a glimpse of a new target. 2 mysterious women sit quietly across the room, trying to avoid any unwanted attention. A predatory grin spreads across the thug's face as he sizes up his prey. He approaches the table with a malicious smile, masking his truly dark intentions. A low-life thug towers over his prey, masking his malice with a mocking offer. The woman remains silent, but her jaw tightens as her killing intent begins to peak. Her fingers brush against her hidden steel, ready to end the fool's life instantly. A sudden warning from her sister is the only thing preventing a bloodbath. High above the common room, a recovering warrior watches the scene with burning eyes. Despite his shattered state, he cannot bear to watch such a one-sided harassment. Before he can step into the light, a powerful grip halts his reckless advance. His companion knows that, revealing their identity now would invite certain death. Adjusting his bamboo hat, the legendary martial artist prepares to handle things his way. The bandit continues his taunts, oblivious that he has just signed his own death warrant. The bandit leans in with a sickening smirk, feigning a sense of chivalry. He forces himself into their space, claiming fate has brought them together. Boasting of his martial knowledge, the fool demands to know the lady's name. Her patience wears thin as she stares back with pure, unadulterated disgust. Refusing to entertain his games, she stands to leave the wretched inn behind. A rough hand clamps onto her wrist, igniting a spark of lethal fury. Her hand reaches for steel, ready to paint the floor with his blood. Suddenly, a towering shadow looms over the table, chilling the entire room. The mysterious escort weaves a lie of nobility to shield his companions. A single piercing gaze delivers a final warning that he must leave now. The women realize the stakes are rising as they are summoned by a lord. The arrogant bandit bristles with rage until a heavy hand checks his reckless pride. His companion warns that crossing those tied to the court is a death sentence. Gritting his teeth in humiliation, the thug is forced to swallow his lethal intent. The tension finally breaks as the cowards retreat, leaving the mysterious escort in peace. Before departing, A formal invitation is extended to the residence of a powerful duke. With the disturbance settled, the group continues their desperate journey through the dense woods. Handong reveals his true purpose, searching for the legendary doctor who can save Jinbek. The mere mention of the master's name leaves the locals trembling in pure shock. They point toward the treacherous mountain path where the elusive healer is hidden. Handong offers a final, respectful bow before departing on his urgent mission. He wastes no time, preparing the carriage to move as fast as possible. His companion warns him to slow down, fearing the toll on their wounded friend. But Handong knows that every second wasted brings Jinbek closer to certain death. Meanwhile, near Hyonjo Castle, a cold reunion between two deadly rivals begins. The white-haired pursuer sneers, mocking her rival for seeking the minister's favor. Unfazed, the assassin strikes back with a sharp, venomous grin of her own. The tension between the two hunters reaches a violent, heart-pounding breaking point. She taunts her elder, asking if she is simply too old for this game. Pure, unadulterated rage boils over as the hunt for the truth turns personal. The white-haired pursuer lunges forward with a scream of lethal, clawed fury. But her rival effortlessly evades the strike, leaving the tracker completely stunned. A sudden, brutal counterattack catches the hunter off guard in a deadly blur. A single, crushing blow sends the white-haired warrior reeling in agonizing pain. Defeated and pinned, she is mocked for losing her master's precious favor. With a blade at her throat, a cold and humiliating ultimatum is delivered. The assassin announces her departure for Sancho Castle to claim their final prize. Miles away, the treacherous mountain paths offer no mercy to the weary travelers. Handong struggles up the steep terrain while carrying his dying friend's heavy weight. He desperately pleads for his companion to survive as their time finally runs out. Handong pushes forward with the weight of his dying comrade on his back. His companion notes that Jinbok's condition is far worse than a simple energy imbalance. She suspects the corrupting influence of the Jade Spirit is finally taking its toll. Handong reveals a shocking connection to a high monk and the looming threat of Jucho. Deep within the mountain range, a secluded, weathered hut offers a flicker of hope. They wonder if this lonely cabin is where the legendary Master Guanyak resides. Handong cautiously pushes the door open to find only silence and a chilling void. The interior is completely desolate, abandoned to the dust and passage of time. With his strength failing, Handong decides to seek temporary refuge within the ruins. Jinbok collapses onto the straw as his life force continues to slip away. Handong watches over his fading companion, while a mysterious ally stands in the shadows. The archer admits he was never trained in the ways of the martial world. Handong questions how a commoner could wield such a destructive and overwhelming inner force. Memories of a desperate battle against a divine nun reveal a hidden, dormant energy. Surviving a clash with the powerful Lord Yupyo confirmed his terrifying natural talent. Although the growth felt rewarding, Jinbek stares at his hands with growing existential dread. A dark presence now haunts his dreams, threatening to consume his soul from within. His body begins to break under the pressure of a pulse that refuses to slow. Handong listens in grim silence, realizing the boy's condition is far worse than imagined. The diagnosis is a death sentence as chaotic power causes a fatal chi deviation. Handong clings to the hope that a legendary master can still save the boy. Jinbok struggles with the guilt of slowing them down as they prepare to forage. His face remains pale, a haunting reminder that time is rapidly running out. Outside the shelter, the warriors notice a slight improvement in the boy's fading condition. Handong knows they must push forward immediately to outrun the approaching darkness. He reflects on their meeting while visiting a quiet grave in the deep woods. He realizes their shared path is forged by a violent and unavoidable destiny. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in a bloody, ominous crimson. Left alone in the shadows, Jinbok grows anxious as his protectors fail to return. A chilling rustle in the trees signals that something dangerous is watching from the dark. A silent hut stands as the only refuge against the encroaching night. The sudden crack of a branch snaps the girl back to reality. She wonders if her protectors have finally made it back to safety. Scanning the tree line, she desperately calls out for the man named Handong. A familiar figure emerges, but he is far from the savior she expected. The village elder staggers forward, his strength completely drained by a hidden terror. He hits the ground hard as his granddaughter rushes to his aid. She holds him tight, demanding to know what happened in the dark forest. He whispers that a venomous snake has already claimed his fading life. Refusing to accept his fate, she screams that she will find a way. The dying elder warns that the venom coursing through him is a death sentence. Jinbek listens in silence, knowing his own time is already running out. He steps forward, demanding the old man stay still for a final desperate gamble. The mark of the serpent is revealed, a lethal stain upon the elder's flesh. Jinbok admits his life is already forfeit, making this sacrifice his last legacy. Stunned by such selflessness, The elder can only watch in absolute disbelief. Without hesitation, the boy begins drawing the liquid death out with his own breath. He purges the dark toxin from his mouth, claiming the poison has been cleared. But the strain is too much, as agony finally shatters his fragile remaining strength. The young archer collapses, leaving the survivor to scream for a fallen savior. Jinbek wheezes that his current agony stems from a much deeper, older affliction. The elder stands frozen, overwhelmed by the weight of the young boy's sacrifice. He frantically checks the boy's eyes, searching for any sign of remaining life. Shock strikes the old man as he detects a legendary resistance to all toxins. He realizes the boy is suffering from a violent and terminal spiritual collapse. Fading fast, the archer asks if this humble man is the master they sought. The elder offers a secret energy circulation method to stall the impending death. He meticulously explains the meridian points, demanding the boy memorize every single detail. Suddenly, Handong returns from the forest, rushing toward his comrade's broken body. The girl calls out to her grandfather as the long-awaited rescuers finally appear. The archer wakes in a daze, wondering where his mysterious savior has suddenly vanished. Handong demands to know why his dying comrade is sitting alone in the cold. Confusion turns to dread, as Handong claims no one was ever by his side. The boy stares in shock, questioning if the life-saving lesson was merely a hallucination. With his strength fading, the warrior is guided back inside to escape the chill. Silence falls over the lonely hut as the line between reality and dreams blurs. They finally reach a bustling settlement as the search for the master intensifies. Handong coordinates with his companion to track down the elusive master of healing. They seek a safe haven while the weight of the mission grows heavier. A violent crash and angry shouting nearby immediately put Handong on high alert. A ruthless mercenary violently interrogates a terrified villager to find his targets. Handong watches from the shadows, recognizing the thugs who caused chaos before. He prepares to slip away until the mention of his companion stops him. Shock paralyzes the warrior as the hunters speak the names of his friends. A calm scholar intervenes, ordering the brute to cease his mindless interrogation. The mercenaries wonder why they are tracking targets from such a distant castle. Handong's blood runs cold at the sudden mention of the white-faced divine nun. The thugs grumble about following court orders in exchange for gold and status. Hidden nearby, the warrior realizes their secret mission is no longer a secret. The massive brute recalls the holy figure they were originally meant to meet. The young archer panics, urging them to flee before the hunters close in. Handong stands firm, knowing any sudden movement will only trigger a deadly trap. Trapped between a silent carriage and a tightening net, every choice feels like suicide. Suddenly, the heavy silence of the village is shattered by a frantic, joyous roar. Commoners sprint past the warriors, desperate to see a legendary performer take the stage. Handong watches the chaos, his sharp eyes catching a detail everyone else missed. A massive crowd gathers before the hall, oblivious to the monsters hiding among them. Rumors of an enchanting melody spread like wildfire through the starving, desperate village. The warriors blend into the restless line, hiding their killing intent from the public. Handong makes a daring gamble, realizing the performance hall is their only escape route. The stage is set for a performance that could hide their desperate escape. Handong slips into the shadows, while the performer distracts the growing crowd. The girl stares in awe, never expecting a grand spectacle in these mountains. For a brief moment, the villagers find comfort amidst the surrounding chaos. They retreat into the darkness backstage, searching for a place to remain unseen. Behind the heavy wooden doors, the sounds of the cheering crowd finally fade. Handong gently lays his companion down as his life force begins to wither. Jinbuk gasps in agony, his body reaching the limit of spiritual collapse. Handong's gaze turns grim, realizing they are running out of precious time. Handong asks the girl to use the secret method learned from her grandfather. Handong focuses his energy, reciting the specific acupoints needed to stabilize the boy's life. He gasps for air as the immense pressure of the technique drains his remaining strength. With a sudden strike, he pours a torrent of blue energy into Jinbuk's failing body. Jinbek groans in pain, his spirit struggling to contain the overwhelming power being forced inside. The energy flows through his veins, fighting to reverse the damage of his spiritual collapse. Handong watches closely as the girl notices their companion's complexion is finally starting to improve. A sudden, sharp melody rings out, signaling the start of a performance in the distance. A crowd gathers to watch a white-haired woman take her place upon the central stage. She begins to play her instrument with a focused intensity that captivates every single onlooker. The girl looks on, realizing the music marks the beginning of something far more significant. Handong freezes as a haunting, familiar melody begins to echo through the air. Even in his weakened state, Jinbek feels the music pulling at his very soul. Inside the quiet room, the three of them remain trapped in a trance-like stillness. High above the city, a mysterious woman plays a song that commands the night. Handong focuses his power, surging blue energy directly into his brother's failing heart. The color finally returns to Jinbek's face as the lethal spiritual collapse begins receding. Handong vows to use this forbidden method daily until they find a permanent cure. As the final note fades, the girl realizes the performance has come to an end. Jinbek sighs in regret, mourning the loss of the music's warm, healing embrace. Far away, the exhausted musician catches her breath, her secret mission finally complete. The exhausted musician makes her way through the dimly lit halls of the palace. She reaches for the door, expecting nothing but the silence of her private chambers. But the moment the wood slides back, her eyes widen in absolute shock. Standing before her are the very fugitives the entire empire is currently hunting. She screams out, demanding to know how these intruders breached her secret sanctuary. The air turns cold as the legendary warriors realize their cover is blown. Jinbek tries to de-escalate the situation, pleading that they are not suspicious people. Ignoring his words, she frantically turns to call for the guards to seize them. Before she can finish her cry, Jinbek moves with godlike speed to stop her. With a precise strike to her acupoints, he instantly paralyzes the only witness. The secret sanctuary is shattered, as a sudden clash sends the fugitives tumbling inside. The elegant musician stands her ground, furious that her sanctuary has been breached so violently. Even in his weakened state, Jinbek senses a terrifying power hidden beneath her beautiful exterior. Handong realizes that brute force won't solve this and orders a halt to the hostility. Handong looms over her with an intensity that leaves the mysterious woman completely paralyzed. Dropping his guard, the legendary warrior bows low and begs for a moment of mercy. She demands they leave her hall at once, refusing to tolerate their presence any longer. But as her eyes sharpen, she catches a glimpse of something she didn't expect before. Jinbek struggles to breathe, his body failing as he whispers an apology for the chaos. The musician freezes in realization, seeing the boy is standing at the very edge of death. The tension breaks as the musician's sisters burst into the hall in a panic. Their eyes widen in shock as they witness the legendary warrior standing before them. Handong remains calm, realizing these young women are not the threat he first imagined. Humble apologies fill the room once the musician realizes they saved her own family. To repay the debt, she offers them a sanctuary hidden from the world's prying eyes. Handong accepts the offer, knowing Jinbek's fragile life depends entirely on this brief rest. Days of grueling meditation follow as Handong pours his forbidden energy into the boy. As Jinbek slowly recovers, he finds peace within the walls of the performance hall. While the musician's melody echoes, Handong searches for the elusive master they desperately need. Holding the jade talisman, Jinbek watches the woman, sensing a power that defies explanation. Handong praises the haunting melody, sensing a power that transcends a simple performance. The notes spark a familiar ache, echoing a memory from his distant, bloody past. His observation leaves the mysterious musician paralyzed, her composure shattering in an instant. Her eyes betray a hidden fear, as if he just uncovered a forbidden secret. The tension breaks when the girl rushes in, screaming that their salvation has arrived. She frantically reveals that the legendary Master Guanyak is finally within the village walls. Handong immediately secures the dying Jinbek, racing toward the mountain path in desperation. Every second is a gamble as he sprints, praying the master hasn't already vanished. He finally locates a humble elder, the man's presence radiating an unexpected, quiet authority. Now, Handong must confirm if this simple man holds the key to Jinbek's survival. Handong confronts a mysterious elder, desperately masking their true identities to find help. The life of his young companion hangs by a thread as he pleads for aid. He recognizes the man as the village leader he once saved from lethal poison. Confusion strikes when the elder claims to have no memory of their previous encounter. The old man gazes back blankly, leaving Handong questioning his own reality. Despite the mystery, the stranger leads them toward the safety of his mountain home. They follow the mysterious figure, carrying the dying boy toward a secluded dwelling. Handong realizes with a jolt that this house wasn't here just moments ago. He demands to know if the man is truly the legendary healer he seeks. His heart sinks as the elder reveals he is not the great master Guanyak. The stranger introduces himself as Guan, but the mystery is far from over. A heavy silence hangs in the air as another presence prepares to enter. Handong is stunned to see the familiar face of the herb-gathering old man. Together, these two unlikely masters reveal they are the legendary healer, Guanyak. They have already heard of Handong's struggle and the dying boy he carries. Guan's expression turns grim as he realizes Jinbek is at death's very door. The boy's internal energy is a raging storm that threatens to destroy him. Terrified, Handong asks if there is any hope left to save his life. The two healers share a knowing nod, preparing for the impossible task ahead. They offer to take the child, vowing to do everything to stop the collapse. Jinbek is fading fast as his internal energy threatens to tear him apart. Handong carries the dying boy toward a sanctuary that feels like their last hope. This remote performance hall hides secrets far deadlier than the storm outside. Doubt gnaws at Handong as he questions if these strangers can truly be trusted. With death looming over his friend, he realizes they have no other choice left. But a shadow from his past is already closing in from the tree line. The crimson-eyed predator watches in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Thunder rumbles in the distance as an ominous tension settles over the quiet village. Unaware of the danger, the locals prepare for a performance that might never finish. Handong watches the darkening sky, knowing a different kind of storm is coming. Handong tries to blend in by performing menial chores within the secret sanctuary. Even the mysterious musician feels a rare moment of peace before the coming chaos. That peace shatters instantly when the front doors are kicked wide open. The predators have finally tracked their prey to this hidden mountain retreat. A terrified girl tries to stall the intruders with talk of the performance. Her kindness is met with a cold grip tightening around her fragile throat. Brutality erupts as the girl is cast aside like a broken doll. The sound of the struggle reaches Handong's ears like a clap of thunder. He drops his disguise and sprints toward the source of the desperate screams. Rage burns in his eyes as he realizes the enemy has crossed the line. A monstrous brute bellows for the fugitives to crawl out from their hiding spot. The innocent residents can only stare in horror at the sudden, violent intrusion. With a chilling gaze, the pursuer commands her killers to silence everyone. Lethal shadows descend from the rafters, blades drawn to spill innocent blood. Handong watches the slaughter begin and realizes his peaceful masquerade must end now. A sudden explosion of force shatters the assassins' formation before they can strike. The elite killers recoil in shock as their perfect ambush is violently derailed. One woman stands her ground, revealing a hidden strength beneath her simple robes. An entire army of disciples rises to defend their home against the invaders. The predators finally realize they haven't cornered sheep, but a nest of vipers. Yun Binghua draws her steel, declaring that trespassers will pay the ultimate price today. The merciless pursuer merely sneers, doubting these women have the skill to survive. A single chilling order sends the masked killers charging forward to claim their prize. Suddenly, the disciples shift, unfurling a sophisticated sword formation that catches everyone off guard. The invaders find themselves completely encircled as the sanctuary's true defensive power is revealed. Panic strikes the elite assassins when they realize they've walked into a perfectly orchestrated trap. Blood sprays across the wood as the first killer is cut down with surgical precision. Handong watches in silence, noting that these are no ordinary women defending the hall. A scarred brute named Wang Sanak steps forward, disgusted by his ally's pathetic failure. The pursuer stops him, warning the brute that his time has not yet come. The pursuer signals the final assault with a chilling whistle. The defenseless girl can only watch as death leaps from the shadows. A hooded nightmare descends, crushing the sanctuary's defenders in a single strike. Chaos erupts as a massive explosion tears through the sacred performance hall. The pursuer sneers, claiming that their resistance only speeds up their inevitable demise. Wang Sanak finally breaks loose, his blood boiling with the urge to kill. He crashes into Yun Binghua with the force of a falling mountain. Her blade shatters like glass against the brute's overwhelming physical power. He mocks her legendary steel, calling the broken weapon nothing more than a toy. The sanctuary's master barely survives the next crushing blow from his heavy mace. Her fingers tighten around the instrument, preparing a final, desperate gamble for survival. The sanctuary's master sits amidst the wreckage, trading her steel for a lethal melody. Wang Sanak mocks the sight, laughing at a woman playing music during a massacre. Her disciples scream a frantic warning for everyone to cover their ears immediately. A devastating sonic vibration erupts, rippling through the air with the force of thunder. The brute's eyes bulge in shock as the invisible frequency shatters his internal balance. The unstoppable mountain of a man collapses, paralyzed by an agonizing symphony of death. Every elite killer is brought to their knees, their minds literally beginning to fracture. The remaining warriors try to shield themselves, but the resonance has already claimed them. The pursuer snarls, realizing her men were too weak to resist the sonic vibrations. She lunges through the chaos, determined to end the deadly melody once and for all. But the sanctuary master is no longer just a musician playing a simple song. With a sharp metallic ring, she draws a hidden blade from her stringed instrument. A violent shockwave erupts as the two powerful forces finally collide in the center. Standing over the fallen, the hunter finds herself facing a far more dangerous predator. The musician unleashes a glowing edge, demanding her enemy surrender or face certain death. Watching from the shadows, Handong freezes as he recognizes the legendary weapon being wielded. The fabled 8 jade spirits have returned, changing the power balance of the entire world. The legendary 8 Jade Spirits emerge, a power that shouldn't exist in this realm. Handong watches in disbelief as the musician reveals her true, world-shaking identity. Refusing to back down, the pursuer launches a desperate, high-speed assault on the master. Steel meets glowing energy as the two warriors trade blows in a blinding frenzy. Every strike is countered by a level of mastery that defies all logical explanation. Surrounded by her fallen comrades, the hunter realizes she has walked into a trap. Breathless and battered, the once confident assassin finally acknowledges her opponent's overwhelming strength. Fear begins to cloud those crimson eyes as the weight of certain death looms. Faced with an impossible fight, she must choose between a shameful retreat or annihilation. The sanctuary owner stands frozen as the situation spirals into absolute chaos. Even the elite hunter is left speechless by the arrival of a superior. A new predator emerges to mock her failure and claim the ultimate prize. Rage boils over as the assassin is forced to swallow her pride. Outside, the heavens weep as a deadly storm gathers over the hall. Steel is drawn when the musician refuses to surrender her hidden guests. The intruder offers a deceptive peace in exchange for the boy's location. Fury flashes in her eyes as she demands the invaders leave immediately. The time for talk is over, as cold killing intent fills the room. The villain decides to unleash a technique that defies the laws of nature. With a flick of his fingers, he turns fallen soldiers into mindless puppets. Terror strikes the sanctuary as the dead rise with hollow, haunting eyes. Even a killing blow through the heart fails to stop these monstrous husks. The defenders watch in horror as puppets march forward despite their lethal wounds. An innocent girl is caught in the crossfire of this unnatural, one-sided slaughter. A blinding flash of golden energy suddenly tears through the dark battlefield. Shock ripples through the room as a dormant power finally awakens in the shadows. Handong steps into the light, refusing to let another innocent soul be extinguished. A sadistic smirk spreads across the face of the man hunting the Jade Talisman. He looks down from the heights, demanding to know where the target is hidden. Before Handong can even react, the enemy is already breathing down his neck. Speed beyond comprehension sends the former Asura clan warrior crashing to the floor. Glowing purple threads coil around his limbs, pinning him like a helpless insect. Nearby, Jinbek watches in absolute horror as his protector is suddenly brought low. But the trap is already set, as the same lethal threads bind the boy's wrists. Handong stares up, paralyzed by a presence that seemingly appeared out of thin air. The hunter offers a chilling trade, the boy's location in exchange for the truth. Guangba Exa laughs with chilling arrogance, mocking the weakness of those who stand against him. He stands over the fallen, threatening to slaughter every sister within these sanctuary walls. A brutal wave of energy leaves the warriors paralyzed in a state of absolute agony. Their weapons shatter instantly, leaving the survivors defenseless against the coming storm of violence. Handong watches in sheer horror as the sanctuary is turned into a gruesome slaughterhouse. But a cold, murderous fury ignites within Yun Binghua as she finally draws steel. Through the heavy rain, her piercing gaze locks onto the monsters desecrating her home. Nearby, the pursuer seethes with envy, desperate to reclaim her pride through blood. She prepares a lethal ambush, determined to steal the kill and earn her redemption. The pursuer lunges from above, screaming for her enemies, certain and immediate death. Yun Binghua raises her blade as a blinding blue aura consumes the entire room. But the assassin only scoffs, claiming that mere sword energy will never be enough. She dances through the air, effortlessly evading every lethal strike thrown her way. A massive explosion of spiritual power rocks the sanctuary to its very core. Heavy rain washes over the sanctuary as the two warriors prepare for death. The invading soldiers stand frozen, realizing the true scale of the coming disaster. With a twisted smile, the pursuer mocks the musician's failing strength and stamina. Suddenly, Binghua releases her true form, unleashing a floral storm of absolute destruction. A lethal frost erupts, consuming the elite soldiers in a flash of blue light. The pursuer screams in disbelief as her entire vanguard is neutralized instantly. Seizing the momentary chaos, the survivors prepare their final desperate gambit for escape. A single smoke bomb is launched into the heart of the freezing battlefield. Thick white clouds swallow the area, blinding the remaining invaders in a dense shroud. When the mist clears, the attackers stand as nothing more than helpless ice statues. She realizes too late that she has been played by a master of illusions. Even Handong watches in awe, questioning where such overwhelming martial power originated. Binghua suddenly appears before him, her presence radiating a chilling and majestic aura. Channeling her inner spirit, she commands the warrior to follow her into the shadows. Handong realizes the secret path is their only hope for surviving this frozen hell. The pursuer's blood-curdling scream erupts as she finds nothing but empty air. Panic sets in as the elite hunters scramble to reclaim their lost targets. Blame and insults fly between the warriors, who failed to hold the line. A sharp order demands silence as the desperate search for the survivors begins. Every second counts as she races through the halls, hunting for signs of life. She kicks the doors wide, expecting a fight, but finds only chilling silence. Her shadow stretches across the vacant room, mocking her repeated failures. Cursing their cleverness, she realizes they have slipped through her fingers once again. Suddenly, her crimson eyes widen as she senses a presence she didn't expect. A discarded secret lies amidst the ruins of a failed capture attempt. The pursuer's eyes widen as she realizes the legendary scripture was left behind. Horror strikes her as she connects the dots to the white-faced divine nun. Guangbaiexa finally discovers the hidden passage where their prey vanished into thin air. Desperation fuels their next move as they scramble to recover their lost honor. High above, a mocking shadow watches the elite hunters fail their simple mission. She sneers at their incompetence, calling the legendary warriors nothing but useless trash. With a graceful leap, she leaves the frustrated hunters far behind in the rain. Far from the chaos, the roaring waterfall hides the path to true sanctuary. Safely hidden, Handong and Binghua watch the water, knowing the real war begins. Deep within the hidden cavern, the group finally finds a moment of fleeting peace. Binghua vows to protect the entrance while the others recover from their brutal journey. But Handong refuses to rest, insisting his blade is the only reliable shield left. He reassures his friend that the worst of the nightmare is finally behind them. Yet, a heavy weight settles in his heart as he watches his comrade's strength. Nearby, a solitary campfire flickers against the cold, oppressive shadows of the cave. Suddenly, the veil of unconsciousness lifts as a pair of weary eyes snap open. Jinbek awakens on a bed of straw, his body trembling from the spiritual collapse. Disoriented and weak, he gazes around the sanctuary, searching for any sign of hope. Before him sit the legendary masters, having already peered into his shattered soul. Jinbek waits in silence as the legendary healers begin their long-awaited examination. Master Yak stares deeply into the boy's soul, searching for a hidden truth. The masters question if he mastered a forbidden technique capable of devouring raw energy. A vision of chaotic power flashes, showing the terrifying price of such forbidden arts. Terrified and confused, Jinbek denies ever touching such dark and dangerous martial arts. He insists his skills are mediocre, leaving the legendary duo in a tense silence. Yak laughs off the suspicion, noting the boy's body is far too fragile. However, Master Guan remains grim, his eyes reflecting a much darker reality. He reveals a path to salvation exists, but the journey will be agonizingly difficult. The ultimate price is clear. Surviving the treatment means dancing with death itself. The masters deliver a crushing verdict. Jinbek's body cannot contain this surging power. One wrong move and his internal energy will tear him apart instantly. A heavy silence fills the cave as the boy faces his inevitable end. But Jinbek's trembling lips aren't begging for his own miserable life. He makes a final, desperate plea for an antidote to save his grandfather. The horrific memory of the black silkworm pill haunts his every waking moment. The legendary healers stand frozen, paralyzed by the names they just heard. Chaos is brewing at Hyeonjo Castle, and the boy is out of time. The mention of the white-faced divine nun sends a chill through the sanctuary. With a clenched fist, he prepares to defy destiny or die trying. The weight of a forbidden name leaves Jinbek trembling in total disbelief. Beyond the hidden sanctuary, the waterfall's roar masks the growing tension. Deep within the shadows, the survivors gather around a small, flickering flame. A heavy hand clenches in frustration as their current plan begins to crumble. Driven by urgency, the warrior decides to hunt for the boy alone. Handong accepts the heavy burden of protecting those left behind in the cave. A lone figure departs into the light, heading toward a dangerous fate. The boy repeats his desperate question, forcing the healer to face reality. Both masters realize the gravity of the situation as the truth finally emerges. They prepare for a final gamble, knowing that fate has finally caught them. The legendary masters offer to pass down their most forbidden martial secret. Jinbek stares in disbelief as they reveal their true enemy is Jucho. The weight of their shared past begins to unravel before his eyes. Years ago, two orphan twins were chosen by the great master Taiwa. Their raw talent was unmatched, surpassing every other disciple in the sect. They were granted the ultimate technique known as the Northern Sea Divine Art. The Grand Prince himself personally oversaw their growth through intense spiritual cultivation. But a dark question haunted them. Why teach the same skill to both? A hidden scroll finally revealed the terrifying price of their absolute power. To complete the art, one must sacrifice everything to empower the other. Harmonizing two distinct chi forces requires the perfect spiritual bond of identical twins. Even the legendary sect leader Taiwa hid the truth of his own twin brother. Jinbek realizes with horror that another brother must have existed in the shadows. The elder falls silent, the weight of a century-old secret pressing upon his soul. To master the ultimate art, one twin must voluntarily discard their very existence. For generations, the sect survived only through this cruel and blood-soaked ritual of sacrifice. But the brothers refused to pay the price of murder for absolute martial power. Decades ago, they staged a desperate escape under the cover of a raging fire. They lived as nameless ghosts, drifting through ruins to evade their master's wrathful reach. After years of exile, they finally chose to return and face their destiny together. They returned to find their sacred home reduced to ash by a monster. Within the ruins, a dying survivor waited to reveal a hidden, agonizing truth. A final embrace confirmed the tragic weight their senior had carried in silence. Their master never intended for either brother to be sacrificed for ultimate power. The old man chose self-destruction to gift them both the legendary divine art. This shocking revelation shattered their world, fueling a lifetime of deep, bitter regret. Master Taihua once channeled the very essence of life to perfect this technique. The crushing weight of their history now falls upon the shoulders of the boy. Now, the brothers offer their cursed legacy to the only one who can survive. Jinbek realizes he is now the sole heir to a legacy born of blood. The forbidden Northern Sea divine art is finally unveiled as the ultimate path to power. Jinbek discovers that his current techniques will eventually lead to a total mental collapse. The masters offer a way to harmonize his energy and become a perfect vessel. He must decide if he is truly ready to shoulder this world-shattering burden. With a desperate cry, the boy swears to master the art at any cost. The elders laugh with grim satisfaction as they prepare to pass on their legacy. Deep in the mountains, a group of dangerous trackers searches for a missing nun. The mercenaries grow restless while scouring the wilderness near the hidden waterfall. A sharp-eyed warrior suddenly detects a suspicious presence lurking within the mist. The hunters halt their advance as they close in on the secret training grounds. A hidden shadow watches as the hunters finally reach the edge of the sanctuary. The trackers halt their advance, sensing a presence lurking behind the falling water. With a wicked sneer, the lead mercenary manifests his lethal blue energy claws. He launches a barrage of spirit blades to force their target into the open. Exploding from the waterfall, the legendary spearman deflects the incoming strike with ease. He lands amidst the spray, his eyes burning with a cold, murderous intent. The hunters laugh, foolishly mocking the man they once considered a pathetic weakling. Their taunts turn to terror as he ignites his spear with a blinding flame. He lunges forward with a speed that defies the laws of the physical world. The battlefield vanishes as he unleashes the world-shattering power of the Unka spear. A titanic pillar of water erupts, signaling the arrival of a true monster. The hidden sanctuary trembles as a legendary force finally reveals his location. The white-haired pursuer realizes her prey is far more dangerous than anticipated. Drenched and trembling, the trackers realize they have stepped into a death trap. Standing amidst the deluge, Handong thanks them for providing a necessary sacrifice. With a wicked grin, he activates the overwhelming power of the Tiger Token. Terror grips the mercenaries as they recognize his aura is no longer human. Desperate for survival, the bulky tracker orders a final, all-out combined assault. Two forces collide as the spearman lunges forward with world-shattering speed. A flash of purple energy marks the end of their foolish hunt forever. Handong moves with a blinding speed that completely defies the laws of nature. Steel clashes against steel as the desperate trackers struggle to hold their ground. With a single swing, he unleashes a tidal wave of pure, destructive energy. The mercenaries grin, foolishly believing their secret formation can still save them. Driven by arrogance, the bulky tracker charges headfirst into the eye of the storm. His companions argue in panic, realizing their ultimate technique has already been exposed. They combine their strength for one final, desperate gale strike to end the fight. But Handong remains unmoved as a divine golden light erupts from his soul. A world-shattering explosion levels the forest, erasing any hope of their survival. Broken and defeated, they finally understand they were hunting a god among men. Handong stands over his broken foes, asking if they are truly prepared to die. Suddenly, a presence with monstrous internal energy watches him from the high cliffs above. The white-faced divine nun appears, eyeing the legendary power of his jade spirit. Handong recognizes the deadly pursuer, his gaze hardening as the real threat arrives. She offers a hollow mercy, promising safety if he surrenders his ultimate prize. Refusing to negotiate, Handong declares he has nothing but contempt for a traitor. The huntress lunges from the sky as he readies his spear for the clash. She strikes with sadistic glee, relishing the sound of his pained groans. Steel meets lethal claws in a mid-air collision that shakes the very atmosphere. Panic sets in as Handong realizes his internal energy is suddenly refusing to obey. The huntress mocks him, revealing that even a legendary spirit cannot overcome lethal poison. Handong stares in horror as dark veins spread across his skin, paralyzing his movements. She reveals her trap, having tainted the very waterfall with energy-dispersing toxins from above. Even the mercenary trackers are caught in the crossfire, collapsing in agonizing, breathless pain. His strength finally fails, sending the legendary warrior crashing into the shallow riverbed. Lethal claws close in on Handong as she prepares to seize his legendary prize. Suddenly, a mysterious swordswoman bursts through the cascading water to interrupt the execution. She leaps into the fray, her blade glowing with a frigid and overwhelming power. The pursuer's triumph turns to shock as she realizes she is no longer the predator. A massive wave of ice energy erupts, completely changing the tide of the battle. The divine nun catches the falling hero behind a massive shield of crystalline ice. The hunter watches in horror as the entire river transforms into a frozen wasteland. The swordswoman vows that no one will leave this frozen graveyard alive today. She invokes the Baek Binghwa, a frost technique that blooms with absolute killing intent. The freezing shockwave expands instantly, trapping the remaining trackers in a tomb of ice. Desperate to survive, the pursuer scrambles back from the encroaching, soul-piercing cold. Her crimson eyes reflect pure terror as a jagged glacier pierces the very sky. The battlefield is consumed by a radiant lotus made of pure, killing frost energy. When the mist finally clears, the legendary warrior lies broken upon the frozen shore. The overconfident pursuer collapses, groaning as the frost consumes her remaining strength. The defeated pursuer curses as the freezing power finally overwhelms the entire battlefield. She struggles to rise, knowing the divine nun is far too dangerous to ignore. The cold warrior remains calm, demanding that her allies rest until the poison fades. Handong grimaces in absolute agony as the toxic energy ravages his broken body. Meanwhile, a silent shadow approaches the sanctuary where the secret struggle first began. Handong recalls his desperate plea to protect his young disciple at any cost. He cautiously enters the temple grounds, searching for any sign of life. Fear grips his heart as he discovers the inner chambers are disturbingly empty. A sudden, terrifying realization strikes him as he senses a presence in the dark. Before he can move, a massive surge of blue energy erupts behind him. Handong freezes as a terrifying pressure of raw energy suddenly saturates the air. He follows the untamed current, watching as blue spiritual trails scar the earth. The trail leads directly to a massive rock formation pulsing with ancient power. He touches the stone, confirming the source of this overwhelming force lies within. Desperate for answers, he screams his disciple's name into the silent, vibrating woods. A shadow looms behind him, casting a chilling doubt over the entire sanctuary. Jinbak emerges with a smile that doesn't reach his cold, calculating eyes. They stand before the seal, questioning if the monster inside is truly their ally. The tension peaks when Jinbak asks about their missing companion with icy indifference. Without warning, a lethal strike shatters the peace as the reunion turns into betrayal. Handong senses a presence and demands to know who dares to stalk him. An assassin manifests through the mist, impressed that her illusion was finally broken. He tightens his grip, instantly recognizing that this energy belongs to a killer. Unsheathing his blade, he warns her that her petty tricks have no power here. A sinister grin spreads across her face as she prepares to prove him wrong. With terrifying speed, she bypasses his guard and appears right behind his neck. Handong struggles to react as the world dissolves into a haze of purple light. A cold blade bites deep into his back, spilling his blood across the clearing. The impact sends him reeling, his body slamming hard against the forest floor. Staring at the crimson stain, he realizes he is facing a truly monstrous foe. The assassin mocks his weakness from above, laughing at the fallen warrior. She sneers that the legendary Suraho is nothing more than a pathetic rumor. Handong grinds his teeth, refusing to let the poison claim his life just yet. Far from this battlefield, the young Jinbek undergoes a world-shattering transformation. Two ancient masters recognize the boy as the ultimate vessel for their forbidden arts. They begin pouring the entire essence of the Xiaoyao sect into his developing body. Blinding golden light erupts as they entrust their lifelong legacy to this child. The elders push their spirits to the limit, their very existence flickering with power. A massive pillar of divine energy pierces the heavens, signaling a new era. They smile one last time, choosing to live on as one within their disciple. The elders collapse as their final essence successfully merges with the chosen boy. Jinbak awakens with a raw power that defies the very laws of nature. A violent surge of lightning erupts, shaking the foundation of the entire sanctuary. Handong realizes the clashing waves of qi have finally reached a state of equilibrium. Even the arrogant huntress is left speechless by the sudden shift in atmosphere. Massive boulders fly through the air as the shockwave forces the pursuer to retreat. From the dust of the crater, a new monster emerges cloaked in gold. Handong can only gasp the boy's name as he witnesses the miraculous transformation. The weak child is gone, replaced by a warrior radiating pure, concentrated essence. The huntress smirks, realizing the legendary Jinbak is finally standing right before her. Jinbek stands tall, his aura burning with a terrifying and divine light. The huntress mocks him, promising to send the boy to the afterlife. With a single motion, he prepares to unleash a world-shaking strike. The sky screams as the young master descends like a vengeful god. A massive shockwave sends the pursuer flying, shattering her arrogance instantly. Realizing she is outmatched, the assassin triggers a hidden, puppet string technique. The glowing threads bind the injured warrior, forcing him to stand once more. She laughs, relishing the chance to force the boy to kill his mentor. Handong draws his steel, his eyes vacant and controlled by her malice. Furious at the manipulation, Jinbak erupts with a surge of golden lightning. Jinbak erupts with the blinding light of the Xiaoyao sect's ultimate legacy. The puppeted warrior strikes from above, his movements no longer his own. The assassin sneers, betting that the boy cannot bring himself to strike. Forbidden energy clashes as Jinbek desperately parries his mentor's lethal spear strikes. Refusing to let malice win, he unleashes a precise pulse of divine power. The paralyzing toxin and magical threads finally shatter under the overwhelming golden pressure. Catching his falling brother, Jinbek ensures the warrior's safety before the end. Her plan crumbles as she realizes the boy chose mercy over a killing blow. He lays his mentor to rest, the bond of brotherhood surviving the darkness. Suddenly, a massive presence arrives, the true master of the hunt finally appearing. A phantom of his master appears, but Jinbak sees through the cruel deception. The assassin is stunned as her psychological traps fail against his awakened spirit. He dives from the heavens, a fist of divine light aimed at his tormentor. The impact shatters the earth, sending a shockwave of gold through the forest. Standing amidst the dust, he realizes the enemy still has one desperate trick left. She taps into a forbidden purple power, ignoring her orders to keep him unharmed. A legion of shadowy clones manifests, filling the sky with 100 deadly blades. They descend like a swarm of locusts, intent on bringing him back barely alive. One decisive strike pierces the veil, finding the real assassin amidst the chaos. Her ultimate technique is crushed as she is slammed violently against a massive tree. Jinbei collapses, his divine aura flickering as the earth trembles beneath his weight. Through the forest haze, a terrifying presence emerges to claim her prize. She finally clenches the glowing artifact that cost so many lives to obtain. The legendary Jade Spirit pulses, with a power that could reshape the world. Despair takes hold as the fallen realize their sacrifice was all for nothing. A cold, merciless gaze meets the eyes of the one she just betrayed. She savors the moment of absolute dominance, crushing the life from her rival. With the artifact secured, the true nightmare is only just beginning. Suddenly, the air shifts as desperate cries for the fallen warriors ring out. From above, the battlefield reveals the devastating cost of this ultimate betrayal. Desperate cries echo through the valley as the dust of a brutal battle finally settles. High above the carnage, the traitorous pursuer savors a victory bought with blood. With the Jade Spirit secured, she severs her ties and prepares to rule alone. Under the cover of night, the survivors gather around a flickering flame to heal. The weight of sacrifice becomes clear as the truth of the Elder's plan emerges. Handong reveals the ultimate price paid by those who died to ensure their survival. Bound by a final request, they swear to avenge their fallen sect and masters. Suddenly, a familiar melody leads Handong to uncover the truth of her bloodline. Shock freezes her heart as a name from her father's history is finally spoken. A song of longing reveals a connection that spans generations of grief and loss. Shock freezes her heart as the long-buried truth finally comes to light. She learns her father shared a bloodline with the very warriors standing before her. The crushing weight of his assassination leaves her world in complete and utter silence. Jinbek questions if her lethal swordsmanship was a gift from her fallen father. Handong reveals the final mystery left behind after a lifetime of cold abandonment. The Binghua spirit glows with a power that could reshape the entire martial world. She vows to protect this sacred legacy, even if it costs her everything. Driven by vengeance, the divine nun begs to join their dangerous crusade. As the past burns away, a new path of blood and retribution opens. With fire in his eyes, he swears to repay his master's kindness through slaughter. Deep within the forest, Master Guanyak's hut serves as a sanctuary for the broken. Handong watches his disciple with the gaze of a man haunted by the past. Jinbek pushes his body to the breaking point to master the northern sea art. Every swing of the blade must become a natural extension of his very soul. Unexpected visitors arrive to witness the birth of a new martial arts legend. The young warrior collapses in exhaustion as the weight of his destiny settles in. Old scars are reopened as they compare this training to the brutal Sura days. The mention of a legendary senior brings back memories Handong hoped to forget forever. The divine nun searches for the truth about the father she never truly knew. Handong reveals a chilling rumor that could change the course of their entire journey. A new threat emerges from the shadows of the cursed Blood Demon Mountain. Countless martial experts lie slaughtered as a mountain of corpses fuels a terrifying legend. At the center stands the Heavenly Gang Executioner, a monster with an unknown past. The survivors realize this mysterious butcher possesses power that defies all logic and reason. Every detail suggests a master who has transcended the limits of mortal combat. A chilling suspicion arises that their target might be another legendary Jade Spirit holder. Despite his lingering injuries, Handong knows they cannot let this dark power grow unchecked. Far from the battlefield, a deceptive peace masks the rot within the royal halls. The weight of a crumbling empire rests heavily on the shoulders of a young king. Haunted by his father's sudden death, the sovereign feels his grip on power slipping away. A weary official begs for a moment of solitude as the palace walls begin closing. He bows deeply to his master, unaware this is the last time they will meet. In the distance, the royal gardens bloom with beauty that masks an approaching slaughter. The young king walks the path alone, carrying the crushing weight of a dying empire. Peace is instantly shattered as masked assassins spring from the brush with lethal intent. Surrounded and defenseless, the sovereign realizes the true depth of his family's betrayal. He stares into the cold eyes of his executioners, knowing his time has run out. Even facing certain death, the young ruler refuses to let his spirit be broken. He screams a final, bloody curse against the man who would steal his crown. The garden turns crimson as multiple blades end the life of the last true king. The young king gasps in agony as the first cold blade pierces his flesh. Masked monsters stand over the fallen sovereign, leaving him in a pool of blood. As the killers vanish into the shadows, a desperate servant screams for his master. Cradling the broken boy, the attendant begs for a miracle that will never come. But deep in the woods, a secret fire reveals the truth of that bloody night. A loyal shadow explains that a body double took the fatal blow for him. Haunted by the sacrifice, the true king mourns the man who died in his place. His protector urges him to stay strong, for his survival is their only hope. Lost and broken, the ruler realizes he must now find allies to reclaim his throne. While a tyrant seizes the capital, the last royal spark prepares to ignite a revolution. The young king stares into the flames, haunted by his father's misplaced trust. If the most loyal general could betray them, no official can be trusted. His protector offers a final desperate hope: find the legendary Sarajo clan. But the king remains skeptical, believing the entire clan was ruthlessly massacred. Little does he know, survivors are already sharpening their blades for bloody vengeance. The group finally arrives at the ominous gates of Blood Demon Mountain. They find a village cloaked in a heavy, suffocating silence. Handong senses something is wrong as they step into the eerie settlement. Every woman has vanished, leaving only fearful men lurking in the shadows. Miss Yoon watches the perimeter, certain that a dark tragedy has unfolded here. The village elder reveals that every woman was stolen by heartless mountain bandits. He warns that those who linger here invite a swift and gruesome end. Miss Yoon shudders as the old man points toward their impending, certain doom. Jinbaek's fury ignites upon learning the innocent were treated like disposable cattle. The villagers endure endless torment, paying blood tributes just to survive the night. A suffocating silence descends as the group absorbs the weight of this horror. Handong demands the name of the monster ruling over these blood-soaked peaks. Fear paralyzes the elder, as he speaks of a legend too terrifying to name. He describes a butcher who slaughters master warriors with effortless, unholy purple energy. With a final, desperate plea, he begs the heroes to flee the coming slaughter. Jinbak vows to crush the bandits and save every single innocent hostage. The group stands united, ready to face the darkness looming over the village. Handong demands the exact location of the enemy's hidden mountain fortress. With a heavy heart, the elder finally points toward the treacherous peaks. They march toward the horizon, unaware of the nightmare waiting in the shadows. Terrified villagers watch them depart, praying these warriors survive the coming slaughter. Every step forward echoes with the weight of 1,000 desperate lives. Deep within the forest, the air grows thick with the scent of blood. Jinbek questions if their target truly possesses the legendary, world-shaking Jade Spirit. He smirks, knowing his own growing power will be enough to conquer anything. Handong warns that the Jade Spirit's true power is far beyond simple comprehension. A stern reminder follows that relying solely on ancient artifacts invites a swift death. Jinbok steels his resolve, realizing his own growth is the only path to survival. Suddenly, the divine nun's senses sharpen as a distant metallic ring pierces the air. High above the forest, the group witnesses the opening notes of a brutal symphony. Steel clashes against steel in a blinding explosion of sparks and lethal intent. A lone shadow dances through the air, parrying a heavy blow with effortless grace. She slides back into a defensive stance as the scent of blood fills the clearing. The mercenary leader sneers, acknowledging the impressive skill of his cornered prey. But even the deadliest master cannot hope to survive against such overwhelming, impossible odds. She stands firm, refusing to surrender the secret even for her own life. The hunters sneer, mocking her choice to die for a cause already lost. Surrounded by cold steel, she prepares to dance through a storm of lethal blades. Her focus narrows to a razor edge, predicting every strike before it even begins. Metal screams against metal as she parries the first wave of the desperate assault. Suddenly, a blinding golden aura erupts, signaling the arrival of a monstrous new power. Fear grips the mercenaries as they realize a true predator has entered the fray. The newcomer smirks, his presence alone enough to chill the blood of every killer. The hunters tremble in confusion as their easy kill becomes a waking nightmare battle. He finally reveals his legendary title, a name that strikes terror into the heavens. Jinbek weeps for his fallen comrades, while a silent protector watches over him. The sound of heavy footsteps breaks the silence as a legendary figure emerges. Handong and his elite companions arrive to scold the boy for his reckless charge. The seasoned trackers tremble, sensing an aura far beyond their comprehension. Panic spreads like wildfire as the mercenaries abandon their hunt and retreat in terror. Exhausted and relieved, the crimson-eyed warrior ensures her young charge is unharmed. The grateful survivors offer their deepest thanks to the man they call a hero. She reveals her true name while introducing the hidden royal identity of her ward. Handong warns of the hidden dangers lurking within the treacherous mountain paths. With the air thick with mystery, the prince asks where their journey goes next. The young warrior declares his intent to wipe out the mountain's bandit scum. His mentor quickly intervenes, keeping the boy's reckless enthusiasm in check. A mysterious hooded traveler watches them, praising their noble and righteous spirits. Basking in the rare praise, the boy's ego begins to glow with pride. The stranger makes a bold request to join their hunt for the outlaws. His silent protector watches with growing unease as the deception deepens. He promises to remain a harmless observer during their upcoming bloody confrontation. Sensing the weight of the path ahead, the master offers a safe escort. A flicker of regret crosses the hidden king's face as the plan shifts. Together, this unlikely fellowship marches deeper into the heart of the treacherous woods. The hidden sovereign questions his protector as they maintain their fragile deception. Handong leads the group forward, unaware of the trap closing around them. Jinbek smiles, finally feeling the warmth of traveling with truly righteous warriors. Deep in the jagged mountains, a lawless stronghold waits for its next victims. A massive, blood-stained axe stands as a grim testament to the coming slaughter. The mountain lord sits upon his throne, listening to reports of the approaching party. A trembling scout confirms that a beautiful woman travels among the new arrivals. Consumed by dark desire, the scarred leader decides to claim the prize himself. Meanwhile, the king's secret inner circle finds themselves bound in a cold cell. Chained and helpless, the young monarch fears his journey has reached a dead end. Locked away in a cold cell, the warriors fear for the kidnapped village women. Handong realizes that while women are spared, the men face a certain execution. Desperate to maintain some dignity, his companion requests a simple chamber pot. Chained limbs rattle as the vessel is slid across the damp stone floor. The silence shatters as Handong decides to relieve himself right then and there. His cellmate watches in sheer disbelief, horrified by the lack of any shame. A momentary sense of relief washes over the warrior despite their grim surroundings. Curiosity takes over as the companion asks what drove Handong to hunt these bandits. Handong reveals a deep personal vendetta involving his own kidnapped grandfather. The stakes skyrocket when he mentions the heavily fortified Hyonjo castle. The companion wonders what monster could leave such a trail of absolute destruction. Handong reveals the names of the shadows orchestrating this nightmare from the dark. A heavy silence settles between the two captives as they weigh their options. The heavy gate creaks open as a lowly bandit guard approaches their cell. He spits curses about his boss hoarding every woman for his own pleasure. Handong watches closely as a strange, suffocating heat begins to fill the room. The prisoners' composure shatters as an uncontrollable fever burns through their very soul. Desperate for air, the warrior struggles against the unbearable fire consuming their body. The guard freezes in terror when he realizes his prisoner was never a man. She offers a deadly smile, warning the fool to keep his mouth shut. The greedy guard finally takes the bait and approaches the dark cell. With a heavy click, the iron lock yields to his trembling hand. He steps inside, eyes locked onto the seemingly helpless captive below. The fool leans in close, thinking he has found easy prey tonight. In a flash, her hidden power erupts in a single devastating strike. A lethal blow sends the bandit reeling as his lungs instantly collapse. Handong watches in silence, as the predator becomes the broken prey. She towers over him, warning the coward to remain perfectly still now. With cold efficiency, she snatches the keys to their long-awaited freedom. Handong can only stare in shock at his companion's true identity. The heavy chains finally hit the floor as their desperate escape begins. She urges him to move quickly before the guards realize they are gone. He stares in disbelief as his companion reveals her true identity at last. Meanwhile, deep within the mountain fortress, a dark celebration is in full swing. Tranquil music masks the underlying tension of a room filled with dangerous men. The bandit leader revels in his stolen riches, while beautiful dancers perform. He looms over his captive guest with a grin that promises only malice. With a mocking gesture, he forces a drink upon the silent, silver-haired woman. She swallows the bitter liquid, while his predatory eyes never leave her face. Surrounded by enemies in gold, she desperately searches for any opening to strike. The fragile peace shatters as a single string snaps under the weight of tension. Enraged by the interruption, the hulking bandit leader demands a performance worthy of his status. Sensing a lethal opportunity, the captive guest offers to play a melody of her own. He accepts with a predatory sneer, unaware of the storm brewing behind her eyes. She prepares to strike not with a blade, but with the power of hidden resonance. Her fingers dance across the strings, weaving a song that vibrates through the stone. The hall falls silent, as haunting notes begin to manipulate the room's heavy atmosphere. He watches with a twisted grin, convinced he has finally tamed the silver-haired warrior. Even the surrounding dancers are left breathless by the sudden, overwhelming surge of energy. Within this den of thieves, a beautiful performance masks a countdown to total chaos. The bandit leader basks in his victory, completely unaware of the looming shadow. Seizing the distraction, Handong and his companions sprint toward their only hope of escape. But the warrior stops, refusing to leave his most precious treasure behind. His companion pleads for his life, desperate to flee before the guards return. He knows that if that artifact falls into evil hands, the world is doomed. Meanwhile, the tyrant closes his eyes, lulled into a false sense of security. The haunting melody suddenly cuts short, shattering the peace with a deafening silence. Beneath the strings, a cold steel blade is finally revealed for the kill. The monster barely has time to curse her before the lethal strike arrives. A single devastating blow erupts, turning the entire feast into a bloody battlefield. Back in the shadows, he explains the secret of the artifact they seek. A divine relic that grants the wearer absolute immunity to any physical strike. Even the most lethal blades become nothing more than harmless toys against it. She pours every ounce of her killing intent into one desperate, final strike. But the monster only smiles, relishing the feeling of his enemy's utter despair. Her heart freezes as she realizes her trump card has completely failed her. He mocks her weakness, letting out a laugh that echoes through the hall. In his eyes, she is already a corpse waiting to be buried. With a single, bone-shattering blow, he ends the rebellion before it begins. Silence returns as she falls, her spirit crushed by his overwhelming power. The beast laughs as he watches his prey crumble into nothingness. He stands tall over the fallen musician, savoring a victory won through malice. Days earlier, the warriors found themselves lost and abandoned within a thick fog. Handong demands the truth, sensing a betrayal hidden behind the old man's eyes. His companion pleads for honesty, knowing the entire village hangs by a thread. The weight of their silence forces the elder to finally confront his cowardice. With a heavy heart, he realizes there is no longer room for secrets. He agrees to lead them straight into the lion's den to face destiny. Back in the present, the brute admires the steel that failed to kill him. No blade can pierce the divine protection of his glowing, ancient artifact. The monster cackles, realizing he has finally achieved a body of pure, indestructible divine steel. With newfound power coursing through his veins, his gaze turns toward a truly sadistic game. He looms over his fallen, unconscious prey, ready to satisfy his most twisted, dark desires. In the shadows, the helpless witnesses can only watch in absolute, paralyzing terror. But a sudden roar of defiance shatters his arrogance, forcing the brute to turn around. Handong and his allies burst into the hall, refusing to let another soul be harmed. Confusion turns to pure rage as the leader wonders how these rats escaped certain death. The warriors stand their ground, ready to end this nightmare once and for all. Igniting his spirit, the warrior prepares to unleash a strike that could shatter the heavens. The devastating blow connects with thunderous force, testing the limits of the brute's ultimate defense. The sheer weight of his internal energy crushes the air, leaving them completely breathless. Handong pours every ounce of his remaining strength into a desperate, lightning-charged strike. But the monster only smiles, his twisted grin revealing a horrifying, newfound certainty. Bathed in a sinister purple aura, the brute declares himself an invincible god. Cold sweat drips down Handong's face as the crushing reality of the gap sets in. He unleashes a relentless barrage of blows, desperate to find even a single opening. The leader laughs through the storm, mocking the warrior's futile attempt to hurt him. Panic begins to take hold as Handong realizes his best isn't nearly enough. The stolen bracelet pulses with a blinding, divine light, fueling the villain's limitless power. Turning to his companion, he prepares for a final, dangerous gamble to survive. The bandit leader chokes Handong, unaware that the divine bracelet fuels his invincibility. From the shadows, the pursuer whispers that they must seize the artifact immediately. Handong thrashes against the iron grip, desperately screaming for his captor to let go. A brutal strike connects as the monster mocks the warrior for being a noisy brat. The force of the blow sends Handong crashing across the floor toward the prisoners. Cold steel rattles as the brute reaches for the massive weapon chained to his arm. He stands over the broken warrior, declaring he will grant his wish for death. Spitting blood, Handong glares upward, refusing to simply accept his end without a fight. The leader laughs, wondering if Handong can survive the bite of his heavy axe. With a terrifying roar, he swings the chained blade to deliver a final, crushing blow. Handong crashes into the floor, his body reeling from the monster's overwhelming power. A violent shockwave erupts as the speed of the battle reaches its peak. The brute spins his chained weapon, indifferent to the screams of the captives. Handong glares upward, disgusted by a man who treats human lives like trash. Mocking laughter echoes through the hall as the final execution begins. Sparks fly as cold steel meets the heavy iron of the spinning chain. Ignoring his broken ribs, the warrior lunges forward for one last desperate strike. A razor-sharp blade whistles through the air, inches from the giant's face. He barely flinches, meeting the incoming edge with a terrifying, confident smirk. The monster stands tall, ready to end the struggle once and for all. The hulking monster grips his blood-stained axe with a murderous, bone-chilling intensity. Handong spots a momentary opening and lunges forward for a desperate, final strike. But the giant's cold gaze never wavers, as he anticipates the incoming attack. A devastating blow connects, sending the warrior reeling as he gasps for air. From the sidelines, a terrified companion screams out his name in sheer, helpless agony. The force of the impact slams him into the dirt, his body reaching its limit. Heavy footsteps echo through the hall as the executioner approaches his fallen prey. He snarls with pure hatred, disgusted that a mere mortal dared enter his sanctuary. Towering over the broken warrior, the monster prepares to end this one-sided slaughter. He swings his massive chain downward, vowing to split the intruder completely in half. She screams for him to run before the inevitable impact destroys everything. She collapses in terror as the executioner readies his final, crushing blow. Handong throws himself into the line of fire to save the helpless girl. A sudden spray of blood signals a strike that should have been fatal. The giant freezes in disbelief as his legendary weapon suddenly shatters like glass. Kneeling amidst the debris, the warrior ignores his wounds to check his companion. A mysterious green aura erupts as he reveals a power no one expected. He vanishes into a blur of pure speed, moving faster than humanly possible. With a thunderous strike, he launches a counterattack against the mountain of muscle. The monster remains unfazed, mocking the hero for daring to test his strength. The titan lifts the warrior high, mocking the boy for his sheer arrogance. With a bone-shattering impact, the hero is slammed into the cold, hard earth. As he lies broken, the monster looms over him like an inescapable shadow. Suddenly, a hidden ally strikes, seizing the giant's arm to halt the execution. A brutal backhand sends the newcomer reeling as the beast demands their identity. Despite the pain, the loyal shadow clings on, refusing to let him be harmed. The brute roars in disbelief as the two warriors desperately cling to him. He seizes the protagonist's face, lifting him while cursing their pathetic and stubborn persistence. With both warriors in his grasp, the monster prepares to deliver a final blow. The air screams as he readies a strike meant to erase them from existence. Handong screams in agony as the monster crushes the life out of him. Refusing to let him die, his ally lunges forward to stop the giant. Watching the slaughter, the survivors realize they cannot stand by any longer. They cast aside their fear, deciding it is finally time to fight back. With a collective roar, the defenseless women charge into the jaws of death. They throw their bodies onto his massive arms, clinging with every ounce of strength. Others anchor themselves to his legs, desperately trying to halt his next move. Seizing the opening, the white-haired warrior wraps a heavy chain around his throat. The brute roars in disbelief, as he is pinned by their sheer will. She pulls with all her might, determined to bring this mountain of flesh down. The survivors watch in shock as the unstoppable monster finally hits the floor. They swarm him like shadows, demanding he release his hold on their lives. While he struggles, she reaches for the glowing artifact that could change everything. This is the only chance they will ever get to end this nightmare. Handong rises above the chaos, his fist burning with a lethal, golden radiance. The brute just laughs, fueled by an arrogance that defies his broken state. With a roar of pure defiance, Handong unleashes a strike meant to shatter gods. A blinding explosion of energy erupts, consuming the mountain of flesh beneath him. The laughter dies instantly as blood spills from the Titan's prideful mouth. Silence falls over the room as they wonder if the monster is finally dead. The weight of terror lifts as the prisoners realize their tormentor has truly fallen. Celebration replaces despair, while the massive brute remains motionless upon the cold floor. The deadly pursuer watches in silence, her crimson eyes fixed on the man's resolve. A look of genuine gratitude rewards the hero for his selfless display of power. Friends arrive to find the battle won and the captive women finally set free. Handong leads his group forward, ready to face the corruption rotting the palace walls. For the young survivor, his brother's safe return is a miracle he never expected. A calm word of reassurance confirms that the nightmare has finally reached its end. Emotional reunions fill the room as fathers find the daughters they thought were lost. With the sacred bracelet returned, the first step toward true justice has been taken. The sacred artifact glows with a power that only true blood can awaken. While the village celebrates their freedom, a much heavier truth begins to surface. Even the elders watch in silence as the weight of destiny shifts the room. The sudden revelation leaves the seasoned warriors frozen in a state of pure disbelief. A boy they treated as a simple traveler is actually the rightful Holy King. Handong is forced to apologize for hiding his true identity during their long journey. This bracelet is no mere trinket, but the key to the Hyonjo throne itself. With the royal treasure reclaimed, the young monarch offers sincere thanks to his protectors. The heroes immediately drop to their knees to show absolute loyalty to their sovereign. Now, the Suraho members reveal their ultimate mission to overthrow the traitorous usurper. The king reveals his identity, shocking those who once saw him as a wanderer. Handong realizes the weight of the man he has been protecting all along. The young monarch vows to unite every loyal warrior against the traitorous usurper. Without hesitation, the veteran warrior pledges his life to the true king's cause. Every member of this ragtag group now carries a heavy burden of destiny. Seeing his people's suffering fuels a fire for justice deep within his soul. He commands his allies to keep fighting for those who cannot defend themselves. Cheers erupt from the village as their saviors prepare for the coming storm. Standing at the crossroads, the fate of the entire empire hangs in the balance. They share a final farewell, praying for good fortune in the war ahead. The group marches forward, their spirits high after a hard-fought victory. Even the young king can barely contain his excitement as they travel. He boasts to Handong about how he finally proved his worth, claiming he downed a legendary warrior with just a single, decisive blow. But deep within the ancient woods, a far more primal threat awakens. An apex predator roars, its eyes burning with an unnatural orange glow. Lesser beasts swarm the Titan, desperate to bring the Mountain King down. With one savage swipe, the bear paints the forest floor in crimson. It is a relentless display of raw, unfiltered power that defies logic. The forest turns into a graveyard as the beast stands unopposed and blood-drenched. The forest Titan erupts in a blood-soaked frenzy that shatters the silence. No predator is safe as the Mountain King unleashes its primal, unbridled rage. A field of carcasses serves as a grim testament to its absolute dominance. But even this apex beast is being watched by eyes far more dangerous. A mysterious hand reaches out, weaving threads of forbidden energy through the air. The purple light strikes true, binding the creature's will to a hidden master. Under the weight of this spiritual pressure, the carnage finally comes to an end. The pursuer confirms that the illusion spirit works perfectly on even the wildest beasts. She claims her power far exceeds any common warrior as she vanishes into shadows. With a final glance, she leaves behind a monster, now enslaved to her command. She finally holds the true eight-gate scripture, ready to unleash its forbidden power. A monstrous purple serpent manifests from thin air, lunging toward its helpless prey. The spectral energy coils around the beast, bending its very soul to her will. Driven by a thirst for absolute dominance, she screams as the ritual reaches its peak. The illusionary predator sinks its fangs deep, crushing the creature's resistance in one strike. She marvels at the jade spirit, realizing that her illusions have finally become physical reality. But the forbidden power demands a price, suddenly turning against its master with explosive force. Collapsing in agony, she gasps for air as her body rejects the overwhelming spiritual pressure. She realizes that an incomplete scripture might be a death sentence instead of a gift. Despite the searing pain, she reaches out, determined to master the spirit at any cost. After crushing the forest predator, she retreats to stabilize her fractured internal energy. Disguised and cautious, she enters the village searching for life-saving medicinal herbs. But the peaceful streets are shattered by a violent clash against corrupt monks. The holy warriors charge with murderous intent, demanding blood for a perceived insult. A mysterious woman mocks their hypocrisy while effortlessly parrying their heavy steel blades. Fury erupts as the monks launch a coordinated assault to crush her spirit. The watcher freezes in shock, recognizing the girl as the powerful Miss Nunyang. Trapped and alone, the noblewoman fights a desperate battle against the overwhelming crowd. Choosing survival over sentiment, the pursuer decides to remain hidden in the shadows. The air turns cold as the noblewoman finally unleashes her lethal death needles. A hidden watcher mocks the girl's pathetic technique from the safety of the shadows. The corrupt monks easily deflect her needles, realizing the tips are coated in poison. One massive warrior ignites his internal energy to crush the incoming storm of steel. He sneers at her sloppy assault, preparing to unleash a devastating counter. A single heavy strike sends the noblewoman flying as her defenses finally shatter completely. Looming like a mountain, the brute prepares to execute her before the terrified crowd. In a final act of desperation, she summons a glowing spirit snake to strike. The monks stand their ground, laughing off the spirit while closing their lethal circle. A sadistic smile crosses the killer's face as he raises his blade for blood. Pure terror fills her eyes as she realizes there is no escape from death. A sudden flash of purple steel tears through the executioners like paper. The survivors tremble as a mysterious shadow stands over their fallen leader. With cold eyes, the master reveals she can no longer tolerate their pathetic display. Hope flickers in the girl's eyes as she recognizes her legendary white-faced savior. Panic sets in when the monks realize their strongest brother was killed instantly. The hunter mocks their fear, promising they will soon join him in hell. Consumed by rage, the two remaining brutes launch a desperate, final assault. Their ultimate combined strike is caught by a single hand with effortless disdain. Refusing to accept defeat, they pour every ounce of energy into one last blow. But the abyss stares back as she prepares to erase them from existence forever. The collision erupts in a blinding flash of forbidden energy and absolute destruction. Her body buckles under the strain of channeling such a massive internal force. Their celebration turns to pure agony as glowing threads wrap around their necks. An ethereal phantom rises, hoisting the massive warriors into the cold night air. She coldly informs her prey that they are the first to witness this. Desperate gasps for air are silenced by the tightening grip of lethal energy. The townspeople look on in disbelief as their oppressors are effortlessly subdued. High above the village, the corrupt monks face their final, terrifying judgment. The once mighty brutes fall like broken puppets onto the blood-stained earth. Amidst the stunned silence, the mysterious hunter stands as the ultimate victor. Nyun rushes to her savior's side, frantic and desperate to help. The lethal hunter barely clings to consciousness, rejecting the title of master. Darkness finally claims the mysterious warrior as her strength completely fades away. Sunlight breaks over a quiet refuge as time passes in the village. Opening her eyes to a strange ceiling, the hunter finds her student waiting. Joy overrides the tension as Nyun celebrates the successful recovery of her idol. Despite the warmth, the cold-eyed assassin remains firm about their distant relationship. She demands to know why a highborn lady is wandering these dangerous lands. With a nervous smile, the girl confesses to abandoning her life of luxury. She sought the truth behind her father's power and the shadow of politics. Her father's legacy was built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated terror. Haunted by his shadow, the noblewoman begs her savior for the cold truth. She refuses to return home until she can face her family's dark reality. Turning the conversation, she wonders why her legendary master has finally appeared. The assassin coldly denies the title despite years of teaching her forbidden arts. A memory flashes back to a persistent girl, mimicking every lethal movement. Their bond remains complicated, lacking the traditional respect of a humble disciple. With a playful smile, the girl suggests a sisterly bond that shocks the killer. Suddenly, the veteran hunter notices something strange sitting beside her recovery bed. These rare medicinal pills prove the girl's devotion is deeper than anyone imagined. Nyun praises her master, crediting the cold assassin for her expert medicinal knowledge. With her master finally awake, the girl rushes off to find some food. Left alone in the silence, the veteran hunter stares into the empty doorway. Memories of a blood-soaked past resurface, back when she served as a royal guard. Everything shattered the moment the king died, and a traitor seized total control. Accused of failing their sacred duty, the sisters faced a death sentence for their loyalty. They fought with their lives on the line against an army of their own kin. Steel clashed against steel in a desperate bid to escape the palace's tightening noose. A piercing scream echoes through the chaos, signaling a tragedy she could never forget. She rushes toward her fallen sister while the traitor looms like a dark shadow behind. The traitorous Jucho wielded a terrifying power that crushed all resistance within the palace. Within minutes, the courtyard was stained red with the blood of the royal guards. The hunter could only scream in agony as her sister died in her arms. Just as the final execution strike descended, a flickering light of hope appeared. Little Nyungyong risked everything to shield the hunter from her father's cold blade. Jucho stared in disbelief as his own flesh and blood defended a marked criminal. She swore to die alongside her master, rather than let the slaughter continue. Seeing an opportunity, the tyrant offered a life in exchange for eternal servitude. In that moment of despair, a child's courage changed the course of history. Now she hunts under his banner, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. The defeated hunter clings to her last hope, refusing to let her journey end. She knows the girl's presence will only draw Jucho's ruthless killers to her door. Suddenly, the innocent girl bursts in, offering a warm meal to her wounded master. The pursuer stares in silence, her mind racing with a dark and desperate plan. Perhaps keeping the child as a hostage is the only way to ensure survival. Unaware of the danger, the girl asks why a powerful warrior is now alone. Lying through her teeth, the hunter claims she is seeking solitary martial mastery. The girl's eyes light up, begging to join this dangerous quest for greater strength. While one dreams of glory, the other remains silent, drowning in guilt. Despite the warnings of certain death, the young disciple refuses to leave her side. The hunter finally offers a bond of sisterhood to her loyal young companion. Overwhelmed with joy, the girl accepts her new role with a bright smile. As the sun dips low, they prepare to leave their sanctuary at dawn. The ragtag group of legends begins their long trek through the mountain pass. Hunger gnaws at them, prompting a search for a nearby village to rest. Under a blood-red sky, they share a rare moment of peace and sustenance. Between bites, they discuss the dangerous path that lies ahead of them. Handong reminds them that their ultimate target is the ruthless usurper Jucho. Even the rightful heir wonders if the legendary jade spirits truly exist. With 2 spirits already secured, their impossible revolution has finally begun. A starving shadow of a man stumbles toward the group, begging for a single bite. Before a hand can be reached out, the traveler collapses into the unforgiving dirt. Panic flares as Handong rushes to the fallen man while the party watches in silence. He checks for a pulse, only to realize the man has simply succumbed to starvation. A villager reveals these desperate souls are fleeing the desolation of the nearby Gubyuk castle. Handong remembers a time when that city was a beacon of prosperity and ancient power. Now it is a hollow ruin whispered to be cursed by something far more sinister. The Holy King demands the truth, but the locals are too terrified to even speak. Sensing a deeper mystery, Handong turns to his allies with a heavy, newfound resolve. They must venture into the heart of the ruin to find the next jade spirit. The Holy King senses a hidden past lingering within Handong's troubled gaze. Handong remains silent, his eyes reflecting a weight he refuses to share. He abruptly ends the meal, signaling that their journey must continue immediately. The party follows their stoic leader, leaving the starving villagers far behind. Curiosity consumes the young heir as he questions the warrior's mysterious origin. The pursuer reveals the prestigious legacy of the respected Zhongryong sect. Shock strikes the king upon learning Handong is actually high-born royalty. Despite the whispers behind him, the veteran warrior hears every single word. A shocking sacrifice is revealed regarding Handong's true place within his clan. The truth emerges that he abandoned a throne to walk this bloody path. The weary travelers finally arrive, but a dark shadow hangs over their destination. Gubyuk Castle stands before them, transformed into a wretched shell of its former glory. Stepping inside, the once proud fortress has devolved into a lawless, decaying shantytown. The heavy air is thick with the groans of the broken and forgotten. This living nightmare is far more horrific than any rumors could have suggested. The pursuer realizes the citizens aren't just sick, they are enslaved by narcotics. Handong stares in disbelief, wondering how any ruler could allow such absolute ruin. Innocent people wander like ghosts through streets that have become a den of beggars. High above the misery, a massive, cursed monument rises through forced, agonizing labor. Mercy is non-existent here, as the crack of the whip punishes the exhausted. Cruel overseers demand the palace be finished for their cult leader's twisted celebration. Handong and the rightful king listen in horror to the mention of this palace. An exhausted worker collapses under the weight of the impossible, agonizing labor. To these monsters, the weak are merely trash that must be discarded immediately. The order is given to execute the broken without a shred of mercy. A cold blade descends toward a helpless victim who can only scream. Suddenly, a massive surge of divine energy blasts the executioners into the air. The Holy King steps forward, his power erupting to stop the mindless brutality. Terror fills the guard's eyes as he realizes a true power has arrived. Screams of intruders echo as the hidden war finally breaks into the light. The royal palace erupts into a bloodbath as the hidden war finally explodes. Countless soldiers charge forward with a single command to slaughter the intruders. Handong strikes with lethal precision, his weapon cutting through the wave of attackers. The silver-haired hunter dances through the chaos, leaving only trails of blood behind. Suddenly, a shockwave of pure divine energy blasts the oncoming mob into oblivion. Amidst the carnage, Handong remains a stoic wall of absolute, cold-blooded power. The Holy King unleashes his true fury, his fist glowing with overwhelming energy. Even a massive executioner's axe cannot stop the heir's righteous, unstoppable advance. His eyes burn with the weight of a stolen kingdom and thousands of victims. One final blow shatters the opposition, proving that a true king has returned. Cultists stumble back in terror as their ranks are systematically dismantled. They scream in disbelief that anyone would dare challenge their dark society. Desperate for survival, a lone warrior signals for every available reinforcement. Sensing a shift in the air, the party prepares for an incoming tide. But the Holy King remains unimpressed, calling the approaching army mere rabble. The group stands united as a massive wall of blades closes in. Even with their power, the sheer number of enemies begins to feel suffocating. Realizing the trap, Handong commands everyone to retreat before they are overrun. A terrified witness warns that the true monster, their leader, is finally arriving. Then, the old man freezes, recognizing Handong as a ghost from the past. Handong freezes as he recognizes the face of a man from his past. Led through a secret passage, they reach a sanctuary hidden from the world. But the legendary main base of the Zhangryong sect lies in total ruin. The party stares in disbelief at the devastating sight of their fallen home. Amidst the debris, the weight of their long journey finally settles on them. The old caretaker turns to the young girl, questioning her mysterious lineage. He reveals his identity as the one who once managed the sect's affairs. Desperate for answers, Handong demands to know the location of his own father. The truth hits like a blade as he learns his father died years ago. Grief turns to rage when Handong realizes the depth of the secrets kept. Handong reels from the devastating truth, while his allies watch in silent grief. He refuses to accept the loss, demanding to see his brother, Manhwa, immediately. The old man pleads with him, claiming Manhwa has become a different man. As the rightful successor, Handong knows he cannot abandon his family's bloodline. Sudden shouts echo through the ruins as enemy search parties close in fast. Sensing the approaching danger, he frantically tells the old caretaker to hide. The party retreats into the shadows just as torches illuminate the dark forest. A powerful warrior leads the charge, radiating an aura of cold, lethal authority. The man on horseback is Manhwa, now a commander for the very enemy. Watching from the darkness, Handong's heart breaks as he recognizes his own brother. The search party reports the targets have vanished into the thick forest shadows. Manhwa commands his men to scour the castle grounds for any sign of life. From the darkness, Handong watches his brother with a heart filled with betrayal. The man he once loved has become a cold-blooded commander for the enemy. Deep within a hidden cave, the survivors discuss a terrifying new threat. The old man reveals the rise of a demonic cult called the Divine Knight. Their leader wields the dragon god's lightning to strike down all who resist. Though skeptical, the pursuer warns that heretical cults are masters of deadly illusions. The true heir realizes the situation is far worse than they ever imagined. Handong sits in agonizing silence as the truth of his brother's descent sinks in. Handong cast aside his legacy for a brother who eventually chose the path of blood. Deep in hiding, the survivors recount the origin of a bond now shattered by war. Even the cold-blooded pursuer remains silent as the tragic history of the brothers unfolds. The witness closes his eyes, haunted by the memories of a once peaceful sect. Years ago, their wooden swords clashed in a dance of pure, innocent competition. Handong was a prodigy of war, outshining his brother with every calculated strike. Their father's pride only fueled the fire, declaring Handong the only worthy successor. Desperate for approval, Manhwa could only watch as his younger brother stole the light. They once ran toward a future together, unaware that envy was poisoning their souls. To protect his brother's heart, Handong vanished into the night, triggering the ultimate tragedy. Even with Handong gone, Manhwa could never earn his father's cold, distant respect. Drowning his sorrows in wine, a dark shadow finally approached the desperate brother. The life-reaping master of the Divine Knight Society offered power at a terrible price. In the present, Handong listens as the grim reality of his brother's fall settles. The old survivor begs for patience, for the worst of the story remains untold. Handong's eyes burn with a mix of betrayal and a need for the truth. Years ago, Hanwi returned to the sect with the devil himself by his side. He demanded an alliance with darkness to force their small sect into legendary status. Blinded by ambition, he claimed the throne of a leader he had yet to earn. Furious at the betrayal, Lord Hanyan cast his own son out into the cold. The manipulative master lingered, his presence a poison that the sect leader couldn't tolerate. Exhausted by the bitter confrontation, the old leader's strength began to fail him entirely. As the devil walked away, a silent understanding passed between him and the brother. A simple request for water was the only opening the darkness needed to strike. When the servant returned, he found his master cold and lifeless on the floor. Hanwi clutched his father's body, his screams of agony echoing through the hollow halls. The monk stood over the tragedy like a vulture waiting for a crown to fall. In one swift, dark moment, the pride of the Jangryong sect was utterly extinguished. Back in the present, Handong listens as the horrific truth of the succession unfolds. The throne was never earned. It was stolen through a heartless and calculated murder. The once proud Jangryong sect is swallowed whole by the shadow of the Divine Knight Society. Handong reels from the realization that his own brother traded blood for cold power. Deep within a hidden cave, the survivors gather to plan their desperate next move. The elder warns that their target is a monster lurking beyond the reach of man. Meanwhile, in the heart of the enemy capital, a sinister monument begins to rise. Heavily armed guards stand watch over the secrets hidden within the cult's inner sanctum. The traitorous brother and his new master unveil a treasure that defies all logic. Spectators gasp in awe, unaware of the dark price paid for such a magnificent sight. A golden dragon statue pulses with a divine light that masks its truly demonic origin. Gyochum claims that witnessing this holy idol is a divine honor reserved for the chosen. The artisans who forged this golden dragon have already paid a price beyond gold. But the monk Gyochum demands even more to complete his twisted divine palace. He turns his predatory gaze toward the wealthy nobles, demanding their absolute cooperation. One man foolishly claims his coffers are empty, unaware of the monster before him. A chilling silence fills the room as the monk's eyes narrow with murderous intent. Without a word, he unleashes a surge of demonic red energy from his fingertips. The air shatters with a guttural scream as the noble's vision is violently extinguished. Gyochum coldly declares that those without wealth are unworthy of witnessing his holy creation. Left broken and blinded, the man serves as a gruesome warning to the others. Terrified survivors immediately pledge their entire lives to avoid the same wretched fate. Gyochum smiles, claiming his cult only wishes to bless the terrified masses. His dark alliance with Hanwi solidifies as they stand amidst the carnage. Satisfied with the brutal display, Hanwi prepares to take his leave. The leader dismisses reports of a recent intruder as mere wandering trash. Hanwi walks away, unaware that the shadow of his past is closing in. Under the cold moonlight, he rides through the silent, empty courtyard. The rhythmic sound of hooves masks the presence of a hidden predator. Sensing a murderous intent, he demands the stalker reveal their face. A lone warrior emerges from the darkness, sword drawn and ready for blood. The man who was supposed to be dead has finally returned for vengeance. The fugitive returns to face the brother who stole everything from him. Hanwi mocks his brother's return, questioning why a dead man would seek his hometown. Handong demands he dismount, refusing to let an innocent animal die in their crossfire. With a condescending sigh, Hanwi claims that Handong's uncontrolled temper will be his undoing. Fueled by years of betrayal, Handong lunges forward with a scream of pure rage. Hanwi abandons his saddle, meeting the desperate charge with the grace of a predator. Steel clashes against steel, as brothers trade blows that would kill any ordinary warrior. The air screams with killing intent as Hanwi presses his advantage against the intruder. Red energy erupts from their blades, turning the silent courtyard into a bloody battlefield. Handong skids across the stone, resetting his stance for the next lethal exchange. Handong's gaze burns with a fury that could incinerate his own soul. He unleashes the Dragon Sky lesson, a torrent of flames aimed at his traitorous kin. But Hanwi counters instantly, summoning the freezing power of the Azure Dragon Wave. Fire and ice collide in a cataclysmic explosion that shakes the very palace foundations. The impact craters the stone, sending a shockwave of lethal energy through the air. Handong vanishes into the moonlight, diving back down for one final, desperate strike. Hanwi roars in defiance, putting every ounce of his corrupted strength into his blade. The brothers lock eyes in a clash that decides the fate of their broken bloodline. Steel screams against steel until one blade finally snaps and spins into the sky. The duel ends as the victor stands over the man who destroyed their family. Handong stands over his fallen brother, ready to deliver a final, lethal blow. A cold, murderous intent flickers in his eyes as he prepares the strike. The weight of their bloody history demands an answer that no blade can provide. Handong demands the truth behind their father's death and their sect's tragic downfall. Rage boils over as he questions how his own blood became a demonic leader. Defeated and broken, Hanwi whispers that survival required a price he had to pay, but Handong refuses to accept excuses for the betrayal that destroyed their entire legacy. Hanwi reveals the sinister plot that forced his hand into a dark, inescapable alliance. Vowing absolute vengeance, Handong declares that no one involved in this massacre will live. Yet a terrifying warning remains that his true enemy possesses power beyond all comprehension. Handong disowns the coward standing before him in the cold moonlight. But Hanwi knows too much about Handong's secret past as a royal guard. The shocking truth forces Handong to question how his cover was blown. His brother reveals that no movement has escaped his watchful eyes. He warns that marching for revenge is a suicide mission for everyone. Standing in the courtyard, the brothers face the ruin of their legacy. Hanwi bellows that innocent lives will be lost because of Handong's pride. Fear flickers in the warrior's eyes as the crushing reality hits home. Hanwi mocks the idea that handing over the sect was a noble act. He sneers that Handong's entire sense of justice is a pathetic delusion. Hanwi warns that marching against the usurper Jucho is nothing but a death sentence. He demands his brother leave immediately before he is forced to draw his blade. Handong remains unshaken, daring his own flesh and blood to try and stop him. The brothers part ways as the heavy silence of betrayal hangs over the courtyard. Sunrise reveals the crushing poverty of Gubyuk Castle, where survivors cling to their lives. The weary faces of the commoners tell a story of endless suffering and despair. Handong leads his small band of allies through the narrow and dusty village streets. Nyungyung watches him closely, sensing the heavy burden weighing on his fractured soul. The local guide explains how the people refuse the corrupting poisons of the society. They finally arrive at a modest home, searching for a man who holds the key. An old face from the past freezes in absolute shock at the unexpected visitor. The realization hits like a lightning strike as the legendary young master finally returns. Tears of joy erupt as the villagers rush to greet their long-lost protector. Behind closed doors, the survivors recount the brutal labor forced upon their broken bodies. Handong demands answers about the local lord while the shadow of corruption grows darker. The horrifying truth emerges that their leader is now a drugged, mindless puppet. Despite their own starvation, the people offer their last remaining food as a gift. A crushing weight of guilt consumes Handong for leaving his brother behind in hell. He is stunned to hear that the villagers still harbor love for his sibling. They cling to the hope that a spark of humanity remains within the monster. Handong shatters their illusions by revealing the monstrous crimes of their beloved protector. The weight of betrayal burns in his eyes as he labels his brother an accomplice. The elder survivor looks upon the young master with a face full of sorrow. The old man begs the warrior to leave before more blood stains these lands. He warns that temporary safety only guarantees a more brutal death later on. A heavy silence falls between them as the reality of their situation sinks in. Across the distant plains, a lone warrior rides toward a destiny forged in fire. Handong ignites his inner flame, channeling a power that transcends human limits. He leaps into the heavens, a vengeful god descending upon his unseen enemies. A massive, draconic strike of pure energy cleaves through the air with absolute power. A heavy footfall marks the end of a grueling, secret training. Amidst crashing waves of power, Handong finally grasps a long-forbidden strength. With his ultimate technique perfected, the path to vengeance is finally clear. Every scar on his body burns with the singular desire for blood. Now, the group enters the lion's den to uncover a brother's betrayal. Nyungyung reels as she learns the crushing truth of the sect's fall. Handong reminds her that for the desperate, survival outweighs any noble cause. They walk through a city of ghosts, questioning the darkness within their kin. Suddenly, the sound of marching stops as an unexpected presence halts them. A chilling realization strikes the party as they face a new, terrifying reality. Desperate commoners cry out to a savior who is anything but holy. The true monsters hide behind the mask of a divine pilgrimage. Goham, the sinister leader of the Divine Knight Society, finally makes his appearance. Handong tightens his grip as his sworn enemies walk directly into his path. Beside the monk stands the traitorous brother who destroyed everything Handong loved. A silent, lethal tension hangs in the air as their eyes finally meet. His ally warns him to stay calm to avoid a massacre of innocent bystanders. They watch the predators pass, knowing a bloodbath is only a moment away. A wicked smile reveals the true nature of the man leading this cult. The young king realizes that this supposed holy leader is just a master manipulator. Handong orders his comrades to return while he disappears into the shadows. His allies watch in silence, fearing he is walking straight into a trap. He finds himself standing before a neglected grave at the edge of the woods. A son's grief turns into a lethal promise of blood for the fallen. The ghost of his brother's voice echoes, mocking his impulsive and emotional nature. Hanwi once claimed that a great cause is worthless to a dead man. He questions if protecting his people is truly enough to earn him redemption. Rage boils beneath the surface as he refuses to bow like a common coward. A terrified elder pleads for him to leave before the storm arrives. But the time for running is over, as he rejects their hollow excuses. Handong stands alone before the silent grave, the weight of his past pressing down. The young heir reels in shock as their sudden departure from the castle is announced. He demands blood for his fallen sect, blinded by the desperate need for revenge. But the harsh reality of their mission finally forces the boy into a stunned silence. The silver-haired warrior places the ultimate choice in Handong's blood-stained hands. They acknowledge that finding even 2 jade spirits was a miracle they cannot waste. Their true enemy remains Yucho, the usurper waiting within the walls of Hyonjo Castle. With the sun rising, the group prepares to march toward their final, bloody destiny. They arrive to find the streets abandoned, as if the entire world simply vanished. Handong finally finds signs of life in the eerily abandoned streets of the city. He questions the locals only to learn the citizens have flocked to the enemy. Desperate commoners hail the murderous Divine Knight Society as their holy saviors and providers. The warriors watch in silence as the brainwashed masses rush toward the usurper's palace. Handong realizes that attacking their foes now would turn the entire populace against them. He gazes at the horizon, mourning a home that has become a den of lies. Suddenly, a panicked woman sprints through the shadows, screaming for the young master's help. She collapses before Handong, gasping that she has searched everywhere for his arrival. The hero's blood runs cold as she begs him to save her dying husband. The terrified woman gasps that the Divine Knight Society has stolen her husband away. They didn't stop there, dragging every last member of the Shangryong people into captivity. Handong freezes in shock at the mention of the cult's mysterious and forbidden palace. She warns that the fortress is currently crawling with the society's most dangerous leaders. Handong realizes this means his treacherous brother Hanwi must finally be within reach. He confidently assumes Hanwi will release the prisoners to save his own reputation. The woman frantically cries out that such a hope is already dead and gone. High above the city, the once mighty Hanwi hangs like a broken and bloody trophy. A chilling silence falls over the capital as the hunters suddenly become the hunted. Gyeochum prepares to sacrifice the innocent to celebrate his new forbidden palace. The once proud Hanwi lies broken, his internal energy sealed by a single strike. A cruel master mocks the fallen warrior, promising a reunion with his dead father. Hanwi chokes on his own blood, haunted by the split-second hesitation that cost everything. The monster smiles, deciding to wipe every last survivor from the face of the earth. Desperate and defeated, the brother begs for his life to be the final price. But the true nightmare begins when Gyeochum senses a lingering spark of lethal power. Terror grips Hanwa's heart as he realizes exactly who is coming for them. Handong arrives like a vengeful god, leading his warriors into the heart of the slaughter.